Hello. That's all we get.
Hello.
Hello.
There is a third person today. It's scary.
I guess
Yes.
I could be a person.
So yeah,
Tell the people they need
we
to
are. So yeah, we're doing as usual 2 chapters today. The extremely short, the Potions Master, chapter 8, and then the incorrectly titled the Midnight Duel because no such thing occurs. And we have Martin in this one because he wanted to talk about Snape and also bitch about portraits and probably Dumbledore.
Look, I mean, I assume the Dumbledore bashing will come in at some point, but I mean, Snape is an interesting character, and portraits annoy me more than
Yes.
most things in Harry Potter. So,
So before I forget,
I had wondered about them and wanted to bring them up at some point. So.
they are very strange. Before I forget, before we actually talk about relevant things, I wanted to mention that in the last chapter, I completely glossed over the section where Neville was telling the story about how his uncle just kind of casually dropped him out of a window, and then he, like, was fine because of magic, and everybody was just, super happy and proud about this, and it's like, the fuck would have happened if he died? Like, okay.
I mean, are we sure that he's fine? Like, we're just kind of going off of what he says.
Yeah, I don't know, but that was always a little bit of a suspect moment, and I just totally forgot to talk about it. But I guess really not that much to say. It just deserved attention.
There's a lot of abuse in these books, so just gloss over. It's fine.
Yeah, and also date rape, but that's not until later. So
Oh God.
I'm trying to remember what that would be.
just anything involving love potions.
Oh, right, yeah.
Especially the gaunts.
Definitely that.
So anyway, I guess we'll just kind of go down our list here, and everybody can read out their own notes. Autumn, you took like no notes because we had covered everything, so you will.
I
Just
also
remain
didn't
silent.
feel like I had much to say about these chapters. Probably because they're establishing. I mean, they're still establishing stuff, but by this point, it's kind of getting into a bit of a flow, and it's just developing the characters and the mystery. So I had less to say, as like, I had fewer things that kind of stood out to me as I was reading.
Oh, actually, I guess also while we're just starting out here, I'll do my usual bit. There weren't any specifically Fred or George moments, so there's none of those to bring up. As far as minor localization changes, I have queuing turned into lining, lessons into classes, register into roll call, about turn into about face, and the most interesting one to me is dressing gowns into bathrobes, because I don't think those are really synonymous.
I was wondering about the bathrobe thing. I was like, the
Well-
bathrobe doesn't feel right. Like, when would they put on bathrobes?
It's kind of a cultural thing. So
It
like,
stood out to me.
I'm wearing right now what I would call a robe or a dressing gown, because I'm in my pajamas and it's just like an extra thing to put on. Like if you're just in the house and you're not like going anywhere, it's just.
Right.
I don't think I've ever actually worn a robe or gown in my life, so
That could be why it stood out to me, because like bathrobes are kind of associated with older people. They're not really like a child thing. Like kids, not that I know. I mean, I don't have kids, so maybe they do. But generally, like when I think of a bathrobe, I think of it like an old person trying to
Okay.
keep warm.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I think everybody wears them from time to time over here.
yeah. It did stand out to me though.
Yeah, so that happens in the second chapter here, and so we got those ones that are just basic changes. There's a sentence that just kind of added in an extra clause in the middle of it for the U.S. version. It's the rock cakes almost broke their teeth, turned into the rock cakes were shapeless lumps with raisins that almost broke their teeth.
Hey, then.
I guess they needed to establish what rock cakes were.
Yeah.
I'm
And
still confused by them.
for I guess I'll go over the actual like some of the list stuff later on, but since we're on the topic, the ones that I'm counting as actual unlocalized Britishisms today are got your CONK, because I don't think we say CONK here.
No, not at
I mean,
all.
no, people hardly ever say it here either. It's a very juvenile sort of thing.
Yeah. This one I felt stupid putting it in, but just the word get, like I know what it means now, but I don't know if I did as a kid.
Well, it's source control.
Yeah, and so like get is used like throughout the story
Yeah,
constantly.
I would probably have only learned that from just like BBC shows and stuff. So
We have Ron is mentioning the curse of the Bogies, which I found interesting because in a previous chapter they changed the every flavored bean from booger flavored or from bogey flavored to booger flavored, but this one stayed the same. And then this one's me being extremely nitpicky, but when Harry's looking at the newspaper, it says there was a break-in at Gringotts on 31 July, and we don't format dates that way here, and they did change the formatting of dates in previous sections, but they didn't for this one, so I'm going to say that one counts.
probably
Okay, fair
because
enough.
we would say the 31st of July. We could say that.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean,
we're
no
not-
one here says
like,
31 July out loud. It's just the
Yeah.
written form of 31st of July.
Like in a newspaper article, we would say like the 31st of July or whatever. So I can see that why they kept it.
yeah, but like I did check.
It's just the inconsistency.
Yeah, I checked
Yeah.
the acceptance letter for Harry getting into Hogwarts. It did change from like 1 September to September 1st, and they didn't change this
Well,
one.
that's the written out date though, right?
Well, I think in the British version of the book, it was formatted the same, where they wrote
Oh,
it
okay.
Yeah.
1 September and then later 31 July, and they changed the first one, but not the second.
I see. I see.
So yeah, nitpicking. Anyway,
Very important.
so getting into the actual chapter here then. The first note we have is
Yeah.
blue.
The fucking stairs.
Oh yes, 142 staircases. That's a lot of goddamn staircases. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I actually forgot that they had this much detail about the school being just fucking weird with like, because in the movie and I think in the games, which are more based on the movies, except for having Peeves, they
well,
kind
weren't
of like
the
they
first
have
few
the moving-
games actually made before the movies?
No, they're made parallel to them.
Oh, okay.
I think they came out around the same time. Yeah, it's like a moneymaker thing, right? So
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. But in those, they have the moving staircases, but I don't think they ever really depict any other weirdness with the staircases. Like they mentioned, there's one where one of the stairs just doesn't actually exist, and so you have
Yeah.
to jump a step
Yeah.
and stuff like
And then
that.
Which becomes relevant in Goblet of Fire. Yeah.
When Harry's trying to sneak around with the egg. I don't know why I remember that. That's not. It shouldn't. By all accounts, it should not be a memorable part of that book.
It's just an extremely awkward situation where he's just stuck invisible in this staircase with the egg like screeching behind him, and then like 3 people show up and start like talking about it like a couple feet away from him.
But yeah, the doors being fake doors, they reminded me of the Ocarina of Time fake doors.
It just made me immediately go, "Come on down to real fake doors." But
Yeah,
yeah,
but like just I'm imagining like one of the students trying it and like just dying, like just getting
well,
completely
yeah,
squished
you
and
try to
dying.
open the door and it just wobbles and then flattens you. You got to use
Yeah, it
Goron's
flattens you.
special crop to get rid of
And
it.
Dumbledore just comes along and just goes, "Oops,
Or
well,
the hammer.
there you go."
Yeah.
So yeah, from one paragraph on its own, like it was. I think it was seriously just one paragraph describing like, you know, there's 142 staircases, some of them move around, some of them have disappearing steps, there's doors that are fake, doors you have to tickle, blah blah blah. This one thing brought 3 instances of Whimsy to the list. I'm just gonna say all instances of unreliable staircases, all instances of unreliable or annoying doors, including the portraits, because it's like you can only get in if the portrait is there and she can just leave.
They could absolutely just have a
Like-
spell that just detects like the color
Yeah.
of the robes or something. or
Yeah,
the color
there's
of the
a
lighting.
lot of issues with the portraits being used as just the portraits
Yeah.
in general.
And then the third one is just rooms that apparently move around, because there was a part where he's just like, he basically just says that like there's rooms that just appear to not be in the same place from day to day. It's like, how the fuck does anybody get around this castle?
I don't know. I guess it's just like, I don't really have a good comparison, but I feel like people can get used to pretty much anything eventually, so.
Maybe. Like, I feel like even for me, like, having to remember if it was an A day or a B day at my high school and like what classes we had was already hard enough as it is, and that's in a place where the brooms don't move around.
Dude, so I don't have that many, like, this is completely off topic. I don't have many, like, oh, I'm back at school dreams. But the ones that I do, I always involve me, like, the day is starting and I don't have my timetable. I'm like, shit, what lesson am I supposed to be in? And I'm like desperately trying to like find a way to find out.
We didn't have timetables, so it's kind of weird.
Oh.
It was just kind of always the same until graduation. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, didn't
I
you
think
have
we had
classes in like a freaking trailer?
Well, yeah, there was that. I mean, well, excuse me, the learning cottages. Yeah, they stuck like 5 trailers out in the parking lot and called them learning cottages. We're like, bullshit.
Because the days couldn't be the same because I took more than we had more than 4 subjects or classes, and there were only 4 periods in the day at secondary school.
Yeah, that was how my first high school worked.
I think senior year we had 2 free periods, but that was because I think we were just done with those subjects.
No, there were no free periods. I just mean the periods themselves were really long, and
Oh,
there were only
okay.
4 of them encompassing the whole
Yeah,
day.
they were like an
Gotcha.
hour and a half, right?
Hour and a half, yeah.
So,
Anyway.
Uh-huh.
are we going to be talking about portraits? Because Martin wrote like a novel here.
Okay, I could write like a whole dissertation on portraits. I did stop myself though. I only wrote half a page when you shrunk it down.
Yeah, I shrunk it down to size 8, which is not that small.
It's not.
It's about
and it's not double spaced.
Yeah, it was kind of a lot. It's like,
So-
here's the thing, just again, I didn't care that you had this much to say about it. I welcome that.
Right.
I was just like, holy shit, this is a lot of stuff.
Okay, so I mean the problem is like I had to quote my sources, right? Like I have to go in. I had to go and see what the creator thought of the portraits. So the Wizarding World, which is written by J.K. Rowling, like this section that I found on it, the portraits, the degree to which they can interact depends not on the skill of the painter, but on the power of the witch or wizard painted. So it's like,
That's fucking weird.
yeah, the painter doesn't do it, but so the portrait, once it's completed, the headmaster or headmistress in question keeps it under lock and key, regularly visiting it if to teach it to act and behave like themselves and imparting memories and pieces of knowledge. And how weird would that be? Okay, you have a
Very.
little cupboard in your room, okay? You open it up every so often and you have this painting staring at you, and like I imagine they're like a little puppy, right? And they like perk up when you
Yeah, and
open the door.
so it's like you got
And-
the painting of Dumbledore, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
well, today I learned that
Yeah, exactly.
one of the Horcruxes might have belonged to Ravenclaw. You should remember that.
And like, and it's like so the portraits to me are like a form of AI, and it reminds me of like
Basically,
deepfake
yeah.
videos. You take hundreds of hours of someone's face and of them talking, and run it through as many angles as you can, and hope the end result is enough to get like 30 seconds of clip, right? So like, imagining Dumbledore like constantly opening this cupboard and like his little portrait perking up, like, oh, what am I going to learn today, master? And it's like. And then he has to pretend to be like Dumbledore, and how like horrifying would that be, right? So the fact he's aware he's a painting, because in The Cursed Child, I'm sorry I have to bring that up, but he says, I am paint and memory, Harry, paint and memory. He knows he's fake. That is horrifying. You're as smart as you're taught, and then you're stuck
To
in
be
a painting
fair.
world.
To be fair, is this not basically the equivalent of just a simple AI, like a slightly smarter,
no,
clever
but that-
bot saying "I am a robot"? Like,
Well,
you know,
that's the question,
is it
though,
actually
right?
conscious?
That's
What
the
is
question. I
consciousness?
mean, like, yeah, that's the question. Like, what is a robot? You know, do you impart, like, you know, emotions on the robot, or are the emotions fake? Like, that kind of thing. So, like,
What is
why are we
painting?
having this discussion about paintings for, you know, and it's
Yeah,
like,
whose idea was it to make these? I kind of get it, because it's like you wouldn't want somebody's wisdom to be lost, but it's never going to be their full wisdom anyway, so...
yeah.
This is
but,
why
like,
people write down the things they know. They keep
True.
diaries or they write books.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Like, that would be normal, right? But,
Yeah,
I
but
mean, the
wizards
fact
aren't
that he's-
normal.
he's self-aware he's a portrait. That's really just body horror to me.
It's
I don't think of that
like-
as really being any different than like the Sorting Hat being self-aware. And my thought on the
Well,
Sorting
that's
Hat
its
is that
purpose.
well, I mean, so is
that's-
the portrait though. Like,
Well, yeah,
Actually,
but
that's
like,
a good point, right? Like, you know, we're human and we're conscious that we are humans, and if we suddenly discovered that there's like some higher level of consciousness, like would we be upset that we're not at this higher level? No, because we know what it is to be human, and that's
I mean,
what
it's like the robot who's like, "What's my purpose? You pass butter. Oh my god!" You know, it's
Yeah, but they don't have a conception of that being like a menial, like lowly thing or lowly existence.
He does, because he says, "Oh my god" at the end.
Well, that's because
But
Rick
either way,
programmed it, and Rick's an asshole.
Oh, I mean, I've never seen Rick and Morty. I thought it was
right. Right, but even in the writing, Rowling states that it's the power of the wizard that makes them move, not the painter. And then she specifically says, Sir Cadogan's portrait is forever challenging people to a fight, falling off its horse and behaving in an unbalanced way, which is how the subject appeared to the poor wizard who had to paint him. So in that case, is it Sir Cadogan who is, like, imbuing the power of himself into this painting, or is it the painter? So I'm assuming Cadogan didn't paint himself in a poor light, so did the painter enchant the painting and imbue it with the annoying trait, and why would he do that? So I have so many problems with this.
Yeah.
And on another page she
I didn't even
writes,
know that there was all this depth to it. In the
yeah, and another page she writes, whether a photo or a painting, wizards and witches are able to magically enchant the images to bring them to life, calling Creevely with a muggle camera, as long as he develops in the right potion. So now we have a potion somewhere sitting on a shelf where we can just like stick some negatives in.
Well, I'm gonna step in a second here, because I could be wrong about this, but I think the photographs aren't the same as the portraits, because they don't have any sense of being alive. Those are basically like an animated
I mean, that is
GIF.
true. They're more like video clips.
Yeah.
I see them as that. But then you get to the idea, if Harry had a portrait of his parents, okay? So she says if he had a portrait, it would not help him. If he could meet them as ghosts, it would be more meaningful interaction. But why? Because we've stated previously that, say, like Lily and what's his face, James.
I think this is just Rowling establishing that, you know, she believes that there's so much to a person that you can never possibly capture the entirety of their
I
self.
guess, but I mean, I think it would be nice if Harry did have a portrait of his parents, but then you wonder, like, I guess there's, like, the experience. Dumbledore, you could argue, he's been alive for, like, what, 1,000 years? So, you know, like, he's had some time. He's had some time to work on his portrait, you know? He's opened a little cupboard up here and there. He's taken a look. He's like...
Yeah, Lily and James both died really young, right?
Yeah, they were in their
so
early
they were
20s.
pretty young. So they would have had, like, you know, hello. Like, program. So, it just, and like, Dumbledore has full-on conversations with Harry, you know, so I guess there's the age. Portraits bother me so much. I could go on.
So,
I would like...
last thing I have to say is being a portrait better or worse than being the Moaning Myrtle blowjob sidewalk?
Oh my god.
Oh, no.
Oh my god, no. Oh, you had to remind me of that. Okay,
I think I'd rather be the portrait.
Well, I mean, you're just sitting there on a wall. You might as well have it used. No, I'm just kidding.
No! God.
So, like, you should probably explain that.
I've explained it a few times, but I mean, it was just a Doctor Who episode with the actress who plays Moaning Myrtle got her face fucking melted into a sidewalk, and
Only her face.
there were some really bad implications made. So
really bad implications, yeah. Like, I suppose at least the consent is there, but, like, what else are you going to do? So, it's kind of like the implication of being out on the sea. Like, what are they going to do? So, yeah.
All right. So are we done with portraits, or was there any more on that?
I mean, I could go on, but I'll leave it. Again, I could write a whole paper on portraits.
All right. I guess the next thing on here is Peeves. I don't know if there's much to say about Peeves. He's just kind
I
of...
talked about him a little bit
awful.
already.
Yeah,
He's just
I'm
annoying
glad
as
he's not in
hell.
the movie. Yeah. I'm glad he's not in the movie, because I do think he would just be reduced to, like, really bad comedy, fart jokes, or whatever.
That's pretty much what he already is. Like, every time he shows up, he's just extremely obnoxious and doesn't really... He's not much of a threat as much as he is just a nuisance to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
And
He's the level 1 random encounters when you're traveling in Neville.
But yeah, I like the description of him turning invisible and then like grabbing your nose from behind you and then screaming, "Gotcha, conk!" It's like,
Yeah.
thank you, Peeves.
I did have to pause there because like, and think about CONK, because obviously there's the context of him grabbing your nose, but it was just like a really weird, out of place. And I know you've discussed that it wasn't like translated, but it did make me have to think about it a second. The mystery of the corridor versus the door.
Because in the last video we're just like, is there just this corridor that's available that isn't blocked off in any way? But no, there is a locked door leading to this thing, and apparently Fluffy just is in the corridor and not
in the middle of the
room,
corridor,
which is weird.
and for some reason a trapdoor in the middle of the corridor.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like,
I mean, I can believe
odd.
that there's a trapdoor in the corridor in Hogwarts, to be fair.
But an obvious trapdoor. It's not like a hidden trapdoor.
They probably should have put a carpet on it. I guess
Yeah,
they figured
something.
the Fluffy would have ripped it up.
I don't know.
Maybe you already did.
You think it'd be house trained though? I mean,
I said ripped it up like with his clothes. Oh, never mind. I'm misunderstanding.
well, like yeah. I mean, he would have been like obviously, I think, trained a little bit because he'd have to be house trained. I mean, where are they gonna walk him? Do they? They probably just vanish it, like their own shit. Apparently.
yeah. Fucking Christ.
For anyone that doesn't know, because this is probably never going to come up ever, because it's not in the main books. But there was a was it on Pottermore or was it? Just
I think it was a
Twitter.
Twitter post.
It was just Twitter. It was like
Yeah.
during her Twitter days.
Yeah. Implying she's not still there. She was like, she was like, before plumbing was like introduced to wizard establishments, wizards would simply relieve themselves on the spot and then disapparate the evidence, and people were
fuck
like,
off.
"Excuse me."
Fuck off with that. Like, that's some decency issues, yo.
Yeah, so like,
Imagine you're talking to someone and they just go, "Hold on a moment."
so avoiding any of the like real life politics stuff because we have no place for that here.
No, we're
but
avoiding that, yeah.
as far as like all of the weird shit that she's like added to the series after the fact, like people like
That's what she used to be infamous for, right? It
Well,
was
like-
like the, oh, by the
Yeah.
way,
Well, that's the
Dumbledore
thing
gay
is,
type stuff.
well, the Dumbledore being gay thing was like right
That was
after
at
the
least-
7th book was written.
That, and it was foreshadowed slightly.
Total queerbait, yeah.
But so it's like there was that thing, and then she's gotten this reputation now of just like going back and changing everything, and I don't really think that's the case. Like
Yeah,
the
no.
examples are the weird thing about Nagini in the second Fantastic Beasts movie,
Oh,
which she
yeah.
claims was like she had
on
thought
the
out
napkin, like, no, you can't.
for. Well, I don't think it was on the
possibly-
napkin, but.
Oh, I think she said it was like really early though.
But people were just like, how long did you have this planned out? And she's like, 20 years or something. And people are like,
Yeah.
bullshit, you did. I
Yeah.
feel like, maybe it was an idea she had and then kind of threw it out and is like, yeah, I'll use that now. Like, I could see that being the case. So that one's fine. And then you get the people who are like, Hermione's black. Like, no, she isn't. That's not what she said. But that's...
Well, like, I mean, there could be like a notebook full of random notes, but does she really
sure
have a
there is.
notebook? Does she really have a notebook with a note in there saying that wizards shit themselves? And they vanish?
Yeah, that's the thing though. Most of the other ones I think are like, I can kind of take that and be like, sure, I guess. This one, no, this one's fucking
Yeah.
stupid. Like, what
Yeah.
what are you
They
doing?
had bathrooms.
Like,
They had bathrooms.
I will say, one of the best things to come out of this is a stupid meme I saw once that was like a fake article that said, like, J.K. Rowling announces that Daniel Radcliffe is Chinese.
I think Gus Johnson has a really great like skit on her changing.
was it
things
the one about
constantly.
like Dobby being able to like fit a Nimbus 2000 in his ass or something? Like,
I don't know, but he has a pretty great video on
I
it.
think I saw that a while
I mean,
ago.
Dobby has a groin saw, so.
oh my god.
Anyway,
I'm here for the weird fanfic references.
This is fine.
yep.
So, Mrs. Norris,
Yes.
worthless fucking
She's
cat.
supposed implied to
But,
just be like kind of ugly looking, and no one fucking likes her.
Yeah, so what? So what's the
Ah, the
description
fucking
here?
cat's back.
Looks like grandma. Let me find the actual passage that's describing this stupid cat.
Well, it says bulging, which I've misspelled apparently. Bulging lamp-like eyes.
Yeah,
And it reminded me...
a scrawny,
Dust-colored
dust-colored creature with bulging lamp-like eyes. Eyes. I like
Eyes.
eyes. So yeah, I take that to basically the lamp-like thing is probably just like they shine in the dark,
They're
not
bright,
that
yeah.
they're
See,
like
that's such a weird descriptor because all I can think of is like the anglerfish with the light on the end, and I'm imagining those giant like bulging eyes, but with like the
Do
cat
they even have
underbite.
bulging eyes?
I don't know, but I'm imagining
I'm
bulging
pretty sure
eyes.
anglerfish have tiny eyes.
But I'm still imagining like the giant like underbite of the cat and like the lamp-like eyes, and I don't know, like lamp-like just makes me think like they glow on their own.
oh they're like snail stalks.
They're like what?
Snail stalks.
Oh, snail style. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean maybe. I mean, is Mrs. Norris a cat though? That's the question.
I mean, we don't know for sure.
We don't. What if
She
it's like
could be some
Filch's...
random Korean lady.
What if
Like,
it's
See,
Filch's,
you're joking,
like,
but I was
mistress?
actually thinking that because like there's a note
Well,
in
that's
our
what Nagini is.
there's a thing that we have listed in the notes later on of
Vietnamese.
just like is Mrs. Norris more than a cat because she
Yeah.
seems to have this weird intelligence. And I'm just like, oh, it turns out that she was actually a human all along. And it's like maybe she was Filch's wife that got a cast put on her by some racial stereotype. But I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I mean, because imagine, like, because Filch is obvious, he's a squib, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he can't do anything about it. So say his wife or his mistress or somebody was turned into a cat, and Mrs. Norris is now forever doomed to be a cat because Dumbledore doesn't give a shit. And Filch can't do anything about it.
It
because
always
nobody
comes
wants
back to
help the
Dumbledore
squids.
being bad.
It always comes back. All
To the
roads
Dumbledore
lead to
hatred.
Dumbledore. I'm gonna give Dumbledore so much shit, sorry.
So
It's okay.
I had to take note of the sentence here. It was the dearest ambition of many to give Mrs. Norris a good kick, because it just reminds me of the Ricky Gervais show when he's asking, like, what would you do if you knew that it was, like, your last day on Earth? And Carl's just like, well, I've always wanted to kick a duck up the arse. It was so fucking good.
What are you, a Labrador?
It's like
I
Stephen
love that
Merchant
show.
goes on this big tirade that he's like, I'd want to smash up a bar, I might even kill a man. And Ricky's like, well, how could you do that? He's like, well, because we're all gonna die. Why does it matter? And they have like this whole conversation. It's like, Carl, what about you? He's just like, yeah, I'd want to kick a dog up the arse. So,
God.
But yeah, the next thing is the weird time tense. Because when I started reading the paragraph, it really sounds like, okay, we've been doing this a while. Because it says...
yeah, I had it. They had to study the night skies through the telescopes every Wednesday, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
3 times a week they went out to the greenhouses, which, by the way, they say a dumpy little witch called Professor Sprout. Like,
Bit rude.
why you dissing Professor Sprout like
Yeah.
that? Come on.
Really, don't just the sprout.
But yeah, so
But-
I think basically it's like, this is them looking at their lesson plan and like what
Yeah,
they're going to
it's
be
just-
doing.
Probably.
I feel like
'cause
that should have
otherwise the
been more
tense doesn't
clear.
make sense.
Yeah, it really should have been more clear because I started reading this and I was like, oh, okay, they've been at this, a few weeks or whatever, because you don't say this when you're looking at a schedule. You say, oh, we will have to, or
Yeah.
something like that. And then I had to like reverse my brain later when it says he's only been here a week. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it really does sound like they've been here for a while, and then it's like, well, time for our first potions lesson. This sure was
Yeah.
a fun week, huh? It's like, wait, what?
I was like, what? So I had to step back after that.
I do want to question the, so first of all, the astronomy class, this thing, like, it gets mentioned like 2 or 3 times in the entire series. Like, it never comes up. Like, do either of you even remember the name of the teacher?
No.
Doesn't the teacher become the centaur later? I forget his name.
No, that's for divination.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Professor Sinistra, and I don't remember if it's a man or a woman.
It sounds like such an astronomy name. It's like perfect for it.
So, but yeah, it's like we never see anything of this class. But yeah,
I
apparently.
would have been like to see more.
So yeah, I mean, I like space stuff. I'm curious why they're learning it. I don't know what they do with this information. But
Presumably some sort of divination from it.
See-
I know they have divination separate class, but just
Yeah, I
gleaning
would have
information.
thought they would have learned astrology. wouldn't they? Like,
Probably. But, so yeah, they have to look at the night sky Wednesday at midnight, which I had to stop there for a second because I'm like, my sleep schedule is, like, I stay up until, like, 3 a.m., and I have, like, whatever, who cares? But, like,
yeah.
when you're talking about, like, young kids that are in school and presumably they have to get up at, like, 7 or 8 a.m.
School night.
Like, why are they having classes at midnight? I realize they have to look up at the stars, but, like, set it for, like, 9. Like, what?
Maybe their Thursday's classes start later.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It
I would
doesn't
think
mention
that they would be expected to go to bed for a couple hours before it as well.
Well, that's even worse, because then you gotta go to sleep and then get back up.
Yeah.
Like, no, just stay up.
That was actually pretty common in the Middle Ages. Hogwarts is from the Middle Ages, right? So, like, people did used to actually sleep in 2 instances. Like, they would go to bed, wake up at, like, 2, 3 in the morning.
I mean, that is a good point, considering, like, the wizards don't like anything modern. Or don't look at anything that muggles do.
Except for helicopters, apparently.
Except for helicopters, yeah.
We'll get to that later.
What a weird reference.
Yeah.
And, okay, so here I have to, so there's basically only one paragraph here. It just says, easily the most boring class was History of Magic. It talks about Professor Binns. So every time I'm looking at, like, other fans of this series and talking about, like, what would they do if they were in the wizarding world, everybody's like, oh, History of Magic would be so interesting. I can't believe Harry doesn't pay attention. It's like, no, fuck you. History of Magic is the most boring shit. No one would want to learn.
It's just history, but there are wizards.
Well,
and it's like, I don't know, there are plenty of amazing things in the normal world that would can still be boring to people who are not interested in it, right?
Let me defend my point though. So there's 2 sides to this. The first side is Professor Binns is the most fucking boring teacher of all time who just...
Agreed.
It's basically just Robert Stein, like, listing... not Robert Stein. What's the guy's name? Is it Ben Stein?
I have no idea.
Anyway, why did I say Robert Stein? Anyway, but yeah, it's just the...
Wasn't that the guy from Blair Witch Project?
Yes. But no, I'm thinking of the, the Bueller, that voice. Like, that, like... the droning voice just reading off, in 1412, the Goblin Rebellions were like, just, like, so nobody's gonna, like, nobody will be able to pay attention in this class. That's established as a fact. But also...
And he's a ghost, right?
Yeah, but also, so it's like, the class itself is boring as shit, but even if you have an interest in the subject, I still disagree with you on a fundamental level because I just hate history, and so I will force my opinion on everyone else. So.
Now, I recently went through, like, U.S. history class, and it was actually really interesting because there were a lot of stuff that wasn't talked about that we learned in, like, that we didn't learn in, like, regular high school and all that. So that was kind of interesting on its own because it did kind of go into, like, the weird stuff that you just don't go into and, like, the various political standings and things of that sort of the time. So that was kind of interesting. So my guess is that because Harry, like, this is first year history, and this is, like, 11-year-old history, it's gonna be really fucking boring. Yeah. Because he's probably just going over dates. They're not going into, like, in-depth political stances of the wizards at the time. Yeah.
I don't know, because, are we good?
No. You might need to hang up and recall.
Oh, Jesus.
Edit.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
So, history has this, like, stereotype of being just memorized a bunch of dates, and at least from my experience, that's not really the case over here.
I
think that might be a cultural difference.
There was never a class I had where we had to learn dates, but I still hated it because it was just boring as shit.
I mean, we had to. It was like 10th grade history. That was the only history class, I think, where the teacher specifically said, we're not going to learn dates and we're not going to learn names. I'm going to teach you about things. And it was the best history class ever.
I was good at history in school and liked it well enough. Not to the point of wanting to pursue it further, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like the way that it's taught, in conclusion, the way that it's taught can have an effect.
My problem with it is it's just like, out of the main subjects, it's the only one where you don't really get to do anything creative with it. Like, I'm sure some teachers can find ways to do that, but it's...
Yeah, we did.
Like, you can do experiments in your science classes. You can have creative writing projects and stuff in English.
We had to make a
even
PSA.
in even in math, you're at least like solving problems. You're doing something. History is just learning. These are things that happened. I'm just I don't give a shit. So
They had active things for us to do in history. A lot of the questions were to do with like analyzing perspectives and like gleaning things from information and trying to work out what was being said. And I don't know.
I suppose fair enough, but no, I just
would
I
be
will always have a grudge against it.
right. I mean, I would be curious about what they taught in the history of magic because obviously it's going to have a very wizard slant to it.
Yeah.
So, like, are they talking about Muggles in a good light, or probably not?
From
Who's
from what
writing
we've
the
seen,
curriculum?
from what we've seen throughout this series, every time History of Magic comes up, it's always Goblin rebellions. There's like fucking 30 of these.
Okay, gotcha.
In the one paragraph that we get in this chapter here, it just says they get Emeric the Evil and Uric the Oddball mixed up, and I had to look them up to see if they were one-off characters. Emeric the Evil is mentioned one more time in the 7th book because he was actually somebody who had possession of the Elder Wand at one point. And Uric the Oddball is one of the weird extended universe characters that you see in like the spin-off games and shit, and he is known for wearing a jellyfish as a hat and is just generally weird.
Yeah, I remember that guy. There was a wizard card of him in the video games.
Odd. It reminds me of that random... Oh, sorry.
No, just I'll always remember certain random witches and wizards from like easy to get cards in the original games.
Oh.
There was something to do with a haddock. I don't remember exactly.
What, a fish?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, like, the mention of the goblins reminds me of the weird part in, I think it is The Hobbit, where they like talk about something and then like the goblin like whacks somebody's head off and then like golf was invented at the same time. And
Oh, good.
it was really weird passage, yeah.
All right then. So anyway, now that we've bitched about history, what we got
Yes.
next? So I had to ask this one in reference to just the Transfiguration class. I'm always just curious, when you're turning an object into an animal or vice versa, like, do these animals feel pain if they're being transformed into something else? Is a consciousness being formed out of nothing if you just turn like a couch into a pig? Like, how does that work?
I would say probably not, because I think a theme throughout the series is that of like, the irreplaceability of true souls and of life in general. There's no like true way to revive and stuff like that.
Maybe each time you like transfigure an animal or something, a tiny piece of your soul goes along with it.
Oh god.
So like Voldemort should have just transfigured a bunch of shit.
I mean, McGonagall's been teaching this class for decades. I wonder how she's doing.
I mean, you've seen how old she looks, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's an interesting thought, but it would be, again, the body horror. I was like, can you transfigure a human into something, and then what happens to that human?
Yeah, I mean,
Victor
Malfoy
Crumb.
gets transfigured into a...
There you go.
ferret.
I forgot about that. Yeah, so that's kind of horrific.
But yeah, Victor Crumb with just the head of a shark. Like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving right along.
Yeah. Quirrell's garlic obsession, I couldn't remember. That was to cover up, like, the smell of Voldy, right?
Well, that brings into question, like, Quirrell obviously knows that Voldemort's in the back of his head, but I wonder to what extent he's cooperative. Yes, but I wonder to what extent he's cooperative with him. Like, I assume he's basically being held under duress somehow.
Does he have much of a choice? He's on his head. Like, at that point, yeah, you wake up one day and, like, that does make me question how it happened. Because, like, does he wake up one day and, like, Voldemort's like, hello? And then, it's like...
I think it's implied that he had, like, an encounter with him where Voldemort overpowered him somehow in his weakened state.
And then
in the forest
decided
of Albania,
the best
apparently.
course of action was to morph himself into the back of somebody's head.
Well, because he's, like...
I question his motives.
Quirrell as like a host because remember he got severely injured
right
from
It just makes me wonder, like, Voldemort's state of mind, I suppose, at that time. Like, why wouldn't you just, like, go, like, take over Quirrell's entire body? Could he not do that? Like, and
Apparently
then
not.
the idea of maintaining your face on the back of somebody's head. Not to mention, like, how does Quirrell sleep? Like, does Voldemort, like, can you move over, Quirrell? Because I need to breathe. Yeah.
I mean, he's already
I assume he
inside
lies
the
on his
story,
side.
but
And
yeah, I
then
don't
Quirrell
know.
can't have a love life, I guess, so...
Well, I mean, nobody at Hogwarts can.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, I don't know if they ever specifically say that the garlic is anything to do with like covering anything up.
I thought it was
It
mentioned
could be.
somewhere, but I
We'll
can't
have to keep
remember.
an eye out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could also just be Quirrell continuing to be like terrified of everything, including vampires.
I want to say it was mentioned after, like, the reveal. Like Harry maybe is thinking about things. I don't know. Either the narrator says it. Maybe I'm just remembering a fan fiction too. I've read a lot of fan fiction,
So there's a bit here where it says like they asked where he got the turban from. He says it was given to him by an African prince as a thank you for getting rid of a troublesome zombie. And so I had to look this up. I'm like, are zombies the same thing as inferi or inferi? I don't know how you say that. And apparently they're not. In this canon, zombies are only found in the southern U.S. and are very similar, but are not exactly the same thing. I don't
See,
think
no,
Where was
they're
that one
actually
in?
like reanimated dead. There wasn't.
That's
That's the thing is he's making shit up.
Oh, right, okay.
that's kind of interesting because if zombies are only like found in southern U.S., I assume maybe they're talking about like the New Orleans kind of voodoo vibe.
Maybe.
Because
Probably.
zombies are a thing, like obviously not a real thing, but like in like voodoo, like the zombie idea is a thing.
That's where it came from, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be I see. I wouldn't count like. I guess I would count that as like southern. See, I think of southern as like Georgia southern, but I guess like Louisiana could be
Maybe.
southern. So yeah,
I'm also
like
not 100% on what inferi are either. I thought they were like thralls, and by that I don't mean what you put. I mean like,
I'm not sure what
I mean
a
like,
thrall is.
well, it's like an undead servant basically. So
I think
Yeah, I think I've
I
heard
think
that.
inferi are just reanimated corpses. It's literally just a wizard is like giving a
like
sense
necromancy.
of like it's not even really bringing them back to life as much as it is just giving them mobility.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Using the husk.
okay,
I know in Skyrim you can have thralls, so
yeah.
All right, so yeah, like I said, I looked up a little bit on that. Apparently, J.K. just didn't want to have zombies in the series because she said that they're more of an American horror thing, and they don't really. At least when she was writing this, before we had the like 2010
zombie
zombie
wave.
obsession,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
weren't
Yeah.
like a super big thing in the UK, and she just kind of wanted
I
to stay away
suppose.
from that. But anyways,
So
I think we're finally getting into Snape here.
yeah, we're about 40 minutes into this, and we're finally getting to Snape.
We made it.
Yep.
We made it. So
This 9-page chapter, and we're like 3 pages in.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
I don't
It's
mind.
fine.
But yeah, like
These tend to gain momentum as they go.
That's true. So like I assume like everyone else, Snape is somebody that you can't imagine not being Alan Rickman.
I can't really
Pretty
imagine
much.
him otherwise. Like whenever
Yeah.
whenever I have to
I kind
stop
of have
and
that with all the
think,
characters anyway, but
whenever I have to stop and think of Snape as the book character and not Alan Rickman, my thought goes to like there's like chapter artwork of him in I think in Order of the Phoenix there's one and then there's one at the end of Half-Blood Prince, and he looks like Jafar. He's like really angular and has like a goatee, and I see him and I'm just like that is not Snape. Like,
Yeah.
I have no other interpretation of it because we don't have
Yeah.
the UK version obviously. So.
It's difficult to imagine him not being Alan Rickman, mainly because Alan Rickman obviously was perfect for the role, and I believe J.K. said at some point she was thinking about him when she wrote Snape. I don't know if
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
there are parts in the books though where he does lose his temper and like gets like
Yeah.
he like screams a lot, and like Rickman Snape doesn't do that because it's he's like in the book he's just like, you dare use my spells against me, the Half-Blood Prince,
Yeah.
and then in the book he's just like, I am the Half-Blood Prince. Like
Gotta use that voice for him.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the problem is like I really do like Snape, But I mean, I'll get into it a little bit later. But yeah, I do
There's
like
there's
Snape.
like there's liking a character because they are interesting and complex, and there's liking a character because like, oh, what a
I
great
like
Yeah.
guy.
I like the Snape that doesn't exist. And that's the problem, is because when I read the books, the Snape that is in the books is just an asshole. He just is. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, like, he is.
It's
So,
it's almost kind of weird that there is more to it than that because like I mean yeah he has depth and complexity but like that was never I don't think that should really take away from him being an asshole. Good people can have bad qualities and bad people can have good
well,
qualities.
the
So.
problem is that I mean, it's been a while since I've read the full series, but I don't really remember a, like, redemption arc
He
for
doesn't have
Snape.
one.
Because he doesn't have one, right? So
Like,
The redemption arc occurred in the minds of several Redditors at the same
so
time.
Right.
the thing with Snape like being a good guy is that like when you find out his motivation at the end, it's like, okay, yes, he was working as a double agent at great risk to himself, ultimately for the good side, and like he didn't have to do this, and so he was like technically a good guy, but he was still a dick while doing it, and he
Yeah.
did it for like questionable reasons.
But I
So
mean, the
it's
one
like,
thing that like
Pretty
mostly
much
you could
summarizes
point
it.
to him, he didn't have to be a dick, was like Hermione's teeth thing.
yeah.
Like, he didn't
And
have
and
to
he
be
just
a dick with
constantly
that.
bullies Neville for no reason.
Yeah,
Like,
and plus he's just hating Harry Potter. I don't know why I said his name like that. I'm hating Harry because
of something he
because
can't
of
help.
like something he can't help, right? So to me, like book Snape is not really redeemable because he doesn't have redeeming like arc. But the problem is
Well,
like
he doesn't
when
redeem himself is what it is.
well,
Yeah.
he doesn't really redeem himself in the way that we want him to, because to me, I like fan fiction Snape, and I'm gonna like really just like I read a lot of Harry Potter fan fiction, obviously, and the one thing that I think would have been really interesting, and this changes Snape entirely in the book, is he would have been a really nice mentor for Harry if he was nice. And I really like that
Yeah.
interpretation of
Having
Snape.
that connection to his parents
Yeah,
like, would have made him
I
super fulfilled.
really like it when Snape is written nice, because I like the character of Snape, but only when he's nice, and I can only get that in fan fiction. And it
Yeah.
usually turns into him being like a mentor for Harry, or being like someone that Harry can go talk to, because Harry doesn't have that. He does not have an adult in his life that he can just kind of go up and talk to, because Dumbledore has it out for him.
Well, he
And
does
like,
eventually when he starts kind of being like
He's like
more with the
serious
Weasleys.
but
and
serious,
and
like,
certain members of the Order of the Phoenix.
I
sometimes.
wouldn't even count Sirius because like he's there for some stuff, but he's hard to get a hold of.
well, Sirius
but,
is his own problems on his own.
right.
Like, he
But
has
the
a lot,
Weasleys are
like,
there. It's just
yeah. But he doesn't really have that one person who knew his parents that he could talk to, who doesn't have an ulterior motive for him to like die. And like Snape could have been a really nice mentor and like taught him about
They could have even
potions.
kept some of that like internal conflict with like, oh, I hated your dad, but I loved your
Yeah,
mother.
but
So like,
but I
you can
really
have these
like,
complicated feelings towards him,
yeah,
but
it would
still
have been great because he
make
could have been
better
like,
choices.
I hated your dad, like
so
your dad did
basically
all
what
this
we're
shit
saying
for
is
you.
Tsundere Snape.
Is what?
Uh, maybe not necessarily that, but just like someone struggling a bit more with it instead of just, I'll just be a dick. That's easy.
So I mean, like you said, like Snape could have been, I hate your dad. This is why I hate your dad. Harry would have been like, oh yeah, my dad kind of sucked doing that. Sorry. And and I loved your mother. By the way, actually your father. No,
God.
no, no, I would never do that.
Aside from the fanfics.
What I feel like that would have been a weird conversation to have. Is like, oh yeah, I definitely had it going for your mom.
Yeah, I mean, like it would have been awkward, obviously, like, especially to an 11-year-old. But the idea that Snape could have been there and like mentored Harry through some tough things, realized that Harry wasn't the like the celebrity as he calls
Yeah,
it.
there's a good bit in the seventh book when we're looking at the memories,
Yeah,
where Snape basically says like he's every bit as arrogant as his father, blah blah blah, and Dumbledore's like you're seeing what you want to see in him. Every other teacher
exactly.
says that he's like a perfectly good student.
Yeah, exactly. And that just annoys me greatly about the book Snape, is because I have all this like background of fan fiction Snape going on, and I really, really, really want it to be in the book, but it will never be there.
Well, you know, it's good that you have that we all have fan fiction to fill in gaps and
This is true.
We all
What
we
ifs
get to
and-
have the frickin' like neutered
No.
Ariana Black Snape with she's like sensing his sadness from the other end of
Oh,
the castle
no.
and then becomes besties with him.
Oh my god. I mean, we'll get into more fan fiction later, but but yeah, it does annoy me greatly though because it just would have been really nice, but
It
that
would
would
have
have
been
changed
nice.
the whole book. It
But
would have changed
instead we
everything.
get being a petty asshole and just flexing his knowledge and power over an 11-year-old who just got there and doesn't know shit because of course
Yeah.
he doesn't.
Yeah, so in this chapter specifically, you know, we get the introduction and it says he spoke in barely more than a whisper. They caught every word. So I'm just imagining, you know, like I'm here at the house of the dead. Excuse me, Hades, can you speak up a bit? um, so yeah, there's a line here. He says, there is little foolish wand waving here. Hardly, like, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I'm like, Snape, what are you talking about? Like, you do wand magic outside of the class. Like, why are you...
Weirdness, I think.
See, this is the thing that actually would intrigue me for potions because I think potions is like the science of their world.
Yeah.
Like, and this,
Basically.
and that's what concerns me in this area because after the speech, he just kind of like jumps right into teaching them a basic potion. He doesn't go over like anything about what potions are really.
Yeah,
He doesn't go over the theory of potions. He just, all right, make some potions.
So like
figure
here's
it
the
out.
here's the first class. He does his little speech at the beginning. I can teach you how to bottle fame. Just extremely quiet, like all that crap.
Yeah.
And then you pointed out the Dunderhead thing. We'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he immediately then like is like, Harry, tell me, or sorry, Potter, what would this be? Like, what is this shit? And he's just like, you know, quizzing him all this random crap just to kind of like catch him off guard and basically just make fun of him. Which, if you ignore the fact that he's doing this just to be a dick, if this was the type of thing where he was actually just, you know, day one asking students this stuff, this is the type of thing that I see in, like, bad
High school movies.
Yeah, like bad
Yeah.
TV shows and things where it's like, you know, Drake and Josh, they're in high school in English class, and it's like, can anyone name the two families from Romeo and Juliet? It's like, no, this is not how classes work. Like, we don't just ask these random questions.
Good job.
Yeah.
You already know the thing. I'm here to teach you. I'm going to reward
Exactly.
you for that.
So, like, there's that aspect of it. And then, yeah, he just goes straight into, like, okay, well, we're going to make this potion. And pretty much every time we see a potions class, he's just like, the instructions are up on the board. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like phoning it in.
I mean, he
it's-
doesn't want the potions job, to be fair.
And it's just, it sucks because I feel like actually learning like why the potions work the way they do, like why you have to be so specific with some of the steps, like
I would be fascinated
it
by
would
that
be
stuff.
interesting to learn that, and
Yeah.
they just kind of don't.
Like it would have been, like I do think the potions is the science. Like in a lot of and it again, we're back to the fanfiction, but in a lot of the fanfictions it is funny that Snape doesn't want to be potions master because in almost every fanfiction that he's in, he's always like the best potions person to ever exist.
Well, I mean,
And
he was the Half-Blood Prince. He frickin' excelled at the subject too.
right.
Like,
So but he sells potions and like does potions for people and like that's his job in all of these fanfictions. Is that he does potions. And that's all he does. And then like and a lot of sometimes the fanfictions actually do go into like how a potion is made and like stirring counterclockwise versus clockwise in some steps would cause some issues. And like that kind of stuff would have been really interesting to see in the books. But you don't really like see a lot of that.
Yeah.
it's like, I could see maybe for a first lesson, it would be fine if it's just like, here's a basic, like if we're gonna say this is a reasonable teacher who doesn't just hate his students or whatever, like I think a first lesson of like brew this simple thing and then like next time we'll discuss like why you had to do the steps that you did.
Yeah.
Like that would be fine,
Yeah.
but that doesn't happen. And also we see here that they're making this thing. Neville fucking like his potion just eats through his cauldron and like starts
Yeah.
like seeping across the floor and
There's-
like dissolving
There's some
people.
consequences
Like,
to getting shit
Idiot
wrong.
boy.
I like
Yeah.
dissolving people. That's clearly what I meant to say.
Yeah.
But, I put in a stupid little jab here. If only Percy had begun his reports on cauldron bottoms, because there's just a random bit about that in Goblet of Fire where he's like, oh yes, I have this important report I need to work on about like thin cauldron bottoms, and they're like, oh yeah, Percy, that's so exciting. But like, we're kind of jumping around a bit here. Let's see. There's
That's fine. We want to talk about the Dunderhead thing. It's kind of a minor point, but
it is a minor point. But yeah, like the speech to me is like really kind of nice and powerful, and then he just says the word Dunderhead. It just like kind of flattens everything.
Yeah, he
like said the
it's
I
like
can't
this.
think of a time that I've ever heard it in real life.
It's this very elegant, just like describing the magic of this, and then he's just like, and perhaps like, it's like you may be able to learn something from this if you aren't the usual bunch of dunderheads I have to teach.
Yeah,
just like,
it's
okay.
beautiful prose right up until you get to like schoolyard insult.
The only other thing I really wanted to point out about this is the various questions he's asking Harry. One of them is just like, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? And the answer is draught of the living death. And
is it draught?
Draught, I think.
I think it was draught.
I don't know how you
I
say
seem
it.
to remember having a weird pronunciation, but maybe not.
The reason I pointed that one out is because it does come back in a minor capacity in the 6th book. It's the thing that they're brewing in
Draft. It is draft, I think.
Huh, okay. But yeah, they make that in Slughorn's first class, and then that's what Harry wins the Felix Felicis from. But more interesting, in my opinion, is, again, getting into fanfic territory. In the Harry Potter and the Seventh Horcrux, which was the book that was once passed off as the actual 7th book, Snape just is evil in that one, and there's a bit towards the end where, like, Voldemort knows that part of his soul is in Harry, and they determine that the best way to get rid of him is to give him this potion, which just basically keeps you in, like, an alive but unable to move state, and then just kind of like shove him in a coffin and like keep him alive forever. And it's like, oh god,
that's
like
horrible.
Yeah, it was like completely fucking horrible. And
I mean, fanfiction is basically extended.
According to the wiki, you can use the Wiggenweld potion to awaken people who have been given the draught of living death.
But yeah, nothing really notable there. I just wanted to point that out. Oh yeah, and so Harry loses 2 points in this class for like being cheeky or whatever, and
like how quaint.
Yeah,
I don't even think that saying I think Hermione knows was even really lip.
It wasn't. No, Snape was just being an asshole.
I think it would have been seen as like kind of funny. Like obviously she's got her hand raised, and I can kind of see Harry being like, but she knows, It's like I don't see why it would be lip.
And I love how one of the points that he gets taken is just you let Neville mess up on purpose because you thought it would make yourself look better, but
he's not even on his team. Oh, it's so unfair.
But
Snape is an asshole.
But yeah, it's 2 points lost, and later on in the other books, it's like white shoes after Labor Day, 10 points from Gryffindor. Like there's such a point inflation that happens. I just thought that was kind of funny. So now we have Martin being confused about hams, apparently.
I don't know why. I don't know why I was confused by this, because the phrase hams and pheasants. So in my brain,
this is in reference to hanging from the ceiling in Hagrid's hut. There's hams and pheasants hanging.
In his hut. So I couldn't think of what hams was. I know that ham is a part of a pig that you shear off, right? You have ham, but that's separate from the pig. But we have pheasants. No, let me. So in my brain, I'm thinking of the whole pheasant, right, just hanging there. But then he also says hams, so I'm thinking of like the little slices of hams.
Right,
just
I figured that's what you meant.
And I can't. But then why? Like if it was a whole pig, he would just say pig and pheasants, right?
It's basically a portion of like cured leg meat.
Yeah,
but I see this as no different from like Minecraft. You have steaks and you have chickens. Like it's an entire chicken, but
But like, I've never used the word hams when referring to a portion of the pig.
I've heard
I've
of
just
it.
said pig leg.
It might be more common as a British thing.
Maybe I'm just a peasant, and I'll just say pig leg.
No, you're not a peasant. You're a pheasant.
but,
Damn it.
but yeah, and then I also mentioned the patchwork quilt is just really cute. Like,
It
he
is,
probably
yes.
got it from somebody who liked him, and Hagrid, or he just learned how to sew. And I'm just imagining Hagrid, like this giant Hagrid, like leaned over a tiny little sewing machine.
Well,
And
he
it's
was
really cute.
knitting something on the train when he took Harry to
It
Diagon
looks like
Alley.
a tea cat, like a
Yeah.
no, what was it?
A circus tent, yeah.
Like, that's just adorable to me.
Okay, so yeah, what the hell are rock cakes?
Yeah, I need
They're
to know.
just hard cake. Like, you know how you make a cake and you put in certain things to make it like air up and have bubbles in it so it's soft. If you don't do that, it gets like really hard and solid and condensed. There are cakes like
Fruitcake.
that.
Fruitcake.
I guess like that, yeah.
Fruitcake that you hammer a nail in with.
Yes.
God damn it.
I did like the different of interpretation with that, because I also thought of the joke that fruitcake just gets passed around.
Here's the
for years and
Wikipedia
years.
picture for rock cake.
Oh, let me see. What? Oh, see,
It looks
in
like a
my
red
brain,
lobster biscuit.
It does. So in my brain, this is how my brain works, right? So I see the phrase rock cakes, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, Hagrid's half giant. Giants eat rocks. It must be just
No,
a
they
rock.
don't.
God.
Are giants
But-
the same as Gorons?
But no, well, that's the thing. Like, in my brain, in the Harry Potter universe, like, giants eat rocks, and I don't know why. I don't know why.
That's not a
And
thing.
I don't have a source. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't have a source.
I would say that you were thinking of Strong Mad eating rocks from the house that gave Sucky treats, but I know that you don't watch those, so...
But yeah, like, maybe because of the Goron association with like being in the mountains, but like to me the giants, I'm also probably confusing it with like Lord of the Rings giants, because, or like I guess the Hobbit, because there's like rock giants and they are part of the mountain, and I'm thinking, okay, so what do they eat? Rocks, clearly, because Gorons eat rocks, and therefore Hagrid has rock cakes, so they must be rocks. And that's like the space of my brain in 2 seconds, okay?
Good.
That's what happened when I read Rock Cakes. I'm really glad, actually, that they had the clarifying raisins, maybe, in the
In the US version.
English version. So, because then that does make me think of fruitcake. So, maybe. The joy of rock cakes.
Yes. Oh yeah, so we have 5 minutes to Hagrid's hut.
Yeah, they mentioned that
They were booking it.
at 5 to 3 they left the castle and started heading down to Hagrid's hut. And I'm like, okay, if they're supposed to be there at 3, did they get there in 5 minutes? Like, how small are these grounds for them to walk to Hagrid's
Well,
hut in 5 minutes?
I mean, it could be like one of those show up at 3, but you're not really going to show up at 3.
Yeah, you gotta show up fashionably
Yes.
late. But
But I
um,
could never do that, so...
yeah, because
They didn't
for,
mention-
because for you,
they
you
didn't
have you
mention
have to
the
be
opening.
early to being early.
I do. If somebody tells me I have to be somewhere at 3, I look up and I have to see, okay, so how long does it take to get there? It takes half an hour. Therefore, we leave 45 minutes. You know, like, so that gives that 15 extra minutes of time.
Oh yeah, I
Or
totally
the
do that.
traffic and things like that. See? Like, everybody does that.
But no, you go a step
no, no,
beyond
no,
that,
no.
though. That's the thing, is because what'll happen is it's like I have to be there. I have to be there at 3. It takes a half an hour. I'll give myself a
50
buffer.
minutes of traffic.
So, like, let's say we should leave 45 minutes early, but then you'll want to leave like an hour and a half early.
It's true.
Like-
It's true, because I don't want to be late. And like, what if the
Right.
traffic changes? Or what if, like, you know, a tire blows? Or what if something... And it's just better to be early and wait, rather than, like, being stressed out in traffic.
I know,
So,
but yeah. Anyway, I didn't see the part that said how long it took them to get there, but it's, It is weird though, because I always imagine this place as being like absolutely gigantic.
Gigantic, yeah.
I also think that Hagrid's hut actually moved between the second and third movie, so obviously that's part of it.
I
But,
think so, yeah.
And coming up finally at the end of this chapter here, there's a couple parts where like Harry's talking with Hagrid and he's talking about Snape and he's like, Snape hates me, and Hagrid's just like, oh, rubbish, no he doesn't, and then like kind of
Changes
starts,
the subject, and
dodges
Harry's like, huh,
questions.
does he know something?
Yeah, it's like, I wonder what Hagrid knows and isn't telling me. It's like, I don't fucking know. Like,
see, I thought he was referring to, like, I thought Harry was referring to the way of like Snape's suspicious activity, but there hasn't been any activity, right?
No, not
So
yet.
maybe it's just the scar thing.
Maybe.
But no, he keeps saying like,
Hagrid seems like he knows more than he's letting on. It's like, does he? There was never any.
yeah, the
indication
only
of
thing I
Snape's
would say, like, so Hagrid
I mean, there's the
knows
Gringotts
about.
thing.
Well, there is the Gringotts thing, but there's like, Hagrid knows about James and Sirius at least, and presumably he knew Snape when he was in school, at least slightly, and might have known that there was that rivalry. So like maybe he knows some of that, but
I
like,
actually don't know how old Hagrid is.
at the end of the
I know he was
series,
at school at the same time as Tom Riddle.
yeah, at the end of the series, I think he was
Oh,
like
yeah, he did.
70.
Okay.
Because yeah, I don't remember what year Tom Riddle was in school, but I think when Voldemort dies, he's in his 70s.
Okay.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, it's just it's a bunch of weird red herrings of just like, I wonder what he knows, and the answer is just nothing.
I want to know what Spokes Goblin is at the end there.
It's in the newspaper this morning. It says,
A mother in
But when-
R
but-
who kill her 3 kids.
but we're not telling you what was in there, so keep your noses out if you know what's good for you, said a Gringotts spokes goblin this afternoon.
Oh, gotcha.
I just liked the custom
Yeah.
goblin
Yeah. Custom
word for that.
Goblin honorific.
It reminds me of like this is a stupid example, but it reminds me
Every
of people
pony?
saying every pony
Oh my
in,
God.
in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
Nice.
So we finally move on to chapter 9, the Midnight Duel. And we're gonna start off with you've got your notes here, Martin.
Oh,
That's just,
yes, sorry. So the when I first read the title, the Midnight Duel, the name just evokes Harry and Draco huddled around a table playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I can never hear the word duel without thinking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the theme song and just like it's time to duel,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just imagining Harry and Draco getting together for some Yu-Gi-Oh!
And now that you've given me that visual, now I can just think of the Pro ZD video of like the gameplay and cutscene differences
where
where
they're like, I'll take your head for what you did to my village. Ah!
yeah, and then they sit down and he's like
Sounds like-
moving things like bloop, bloop, moving like jewels.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a nice combo.
Okay, so yeah, immediately here we have so Harry just
Draco
yeah.
making some shit up about.
Well, Harry like hates Draco, and I agree, Draco fucking sucks. And so they're like everybody's obsessed with flying, and Draco's talking about like, oh man, like yeah, I'm such a great flyer, and he has like all these stories. It says he told long boastful stories that always seemed to end with him narrowly escaping Muggles and helicopters. Which, first of all,
I don't like
how
it.
often are you bumping into helicopters?
Yeah.
And like a sentence later, Ron says like, oh, he would tell anybody who'd listen about the time that he almost hit a hang glider. Like, who the hell is hang gliding? Like, why are you flying into these people?
This whole thing,
But,
with Draco, boasting about being in the Muggles, it's just kind of odd because I wouldn't think that Draco would lower himself to, mingle with any kind of Muggle ever. Even
he's
in,
not
a
mingling.
chance encounter. But, that's the thing, Draco, I would assume, thinks that Muggles are just horrible things and we would never want to ever go out into the world where Muggles may be. So
But
the idea,
I thought it was established that wizards do that. Like they kind of have to because.
well, wizards might, but does Draco?
The Malfoys are very
Yeah, they're pure blood, only.
yeah,
They're racist. So
I don't know. The Malfoys exist on a whole other level of just superiority complex. But my thing,
Well,
don't
that's
have
the
to
thing,
go
right? He
anywhere.
could be flying over the cities just to be like, look at those little muggles,
Yeah.
flying over just to assert his dominance.
And again,
I mean,
But,
again, these are all hypotheticals because there's no way he did any of these things.
no,
He's just
of course
making
not.
shit up.
But that's the thing, why, I guess that's the thing, in my brain, Draco is boasting about going outside near the Muggles when really, I think, it being, the pure blood wizard, he would not be boasting about, getting any kind of weird near a Muggle. Because it just doesn't seem the type for the family to do. I don't know.
Well,
It's just,
I'm
it's
picturing
very
it.
gross.
I'm picturing these stories that he's telling as like, I'm flying around having a great time, and then suddenly this Muggle on a helicopter shows up, and I'm like, oh shit, and I gotta get out of the way.
And
But
then everybody's
but
like, "What the fuck's a helicopter?"
yeah, and so I just wrote here, Malfoy did a backflip, snapped the guy's neck, and saved the day because it's just there's a
He's
video
trying to
where
make
it's just.
himself look cool.
It's just
Yeah.
every story ends with so anyway, then a guy on a helicopter showed up, and it's like after the
So,
first
like-
couple times you're probably I don't know about that anymore.
Yeah. So my shameful like fan fiction confession here. I do ship Draco and Harry.
Oh, God.
Okay, but like nice Draco. Okay, again, there's like a totally different Draco in fan fiction, like Snape. So like that's kind of a weird thing like that I have issues with the book. Like my Draco in the book is not nice. So that annoys me. So I don't ship
where
like
does
canon.
where
I
where
don't
does
ship
weird
canon.
like Ariana Black like shoulder rubbing Draco fit into this?
I don't know about that Draco, but yeah, like canon Draco and canon Harry are not shipped by me. Okay, so like this is like completely separate, like alternate universe Draco and Harry. I don't know. I think the dynamic is interesting. We all have shameful like fan fiction confessions. Okay.
I have no shame about anything I've ever done in my life. That's not true. I have no shame about anything I've done recently.
Oof. I don't even know how to follow any of that up. So instead, Ron says that soccer is boring, and he is correct.
So,
Right.
I also am not particularly a fan of sports, but I will mention there's something I think that perhaps not a lot of people know is that most people that watch it don't just watch it because like, oh, wow, this is so exciting watching a bunch of guys running around. Like, it's because of the stories of like the players and the teams and their careers and like, you
Yeah,
know,
I
the
get
investment
that.
built up over that.
See,
It's like any other story.
I guess I don't get that because like to me, why? Maybe this sounds crass, but why do I care about the guy playing the
Well,
sport?
I mean, here's the thing though. Like, remember, we used to watch the Minecraft UHCs, and we
That's true.
we made the comment like,
That's true.
we watched this, and this is like our equivalent
That's
to
our
people
sports.
watching sports, and we would
Yeah.
watch that because we want to see how Beef does, and how Kurt does, and how Good does, and it's
Oh,
like you
okay.
follow the individual
I
people.
get it now. I get it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I apologize then to everyone out
So
there who
I still
follows
maintain that sports are boring as fuck, but I can
I mean, yeah,
Eh.
I find...
mainly
We're
I
all
was
a
just
Minecraft UHC.
mainly I was just the book just mentioned that Dean Thomas has a poster of like soccer players, football players, whatever you want to call it. And Ron's
it's
just
West
like,
Ham.
he's like, what would be so exciting about a game that the people aren't even flying? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. But
And then, of course, like, insert IT crowd moss going on about the joy of soccer and, oh, look, he's kicked the ball, and now they've kicked the ball the other way.
so yeah, they're all looking forward to these flying lessons, except for Hermione. She's freaking out, and it says at breakfast on Thursday, she bored them all stupid with flying tips that she'd gotten out of a library book. I'm just imagining this scene of all of them just sitting around, like eating their
It's like, oh, and
breakfast,
I
and she's
also heard that if you...
yeah, and Hermione just like early book Hermione is like extremely annoying, and she's just like rattling this stuff off, and they're all just like glancing at each other like, is she ever gonna shut up?
The chemistry is really odd
I
between
find
them
it
and
interesting
FPA.
that they still have not really formed the trio. I think the Midnight Duel is kind of the start of it because
I would say the troll is.
It's definitely the troll, but
Yeah.
at
the,
this
the troll cements it, but this is like, they actually have an adventure it's just them and Neville.
I mean,
and
I
in this
guess.
book at least Neville does have like close to the same focus as Hermione does.
Yeah, like
For
the
the first
dynamic
half of
between
it.
Yeah.
the dynamic between them is really odd when you're reading it because you do have the constant like, oh, they've been friends since the beginning, but they really kind of hated each other like
Yeah.
from the start. But that might be just a kid thing.
Yeah,
like,
probably.
boy versus girl as well. I don't know.
yeah. So as this is going on, the owls come in with the mail, and Harry makes a note that like he almost never gets any mail, and Malfoy likes to poke fun at him for this. I'm just like, how fucking petty. Like, Malfoy has to be looking for every reason he can to make fun of Harry, and meanwhile he's over at his table, he like opens up his package and gets like all this candy. He's like, oh, I bet Harry didn't get any candy from his parents because they're dead.
Like, it is exactly the kid in school who, like, makes fun of a kid because their parent died. Like, it's exactly that.
God, is that a thing?
That is a thing, yes.
Oh,
kids do
no.
make fun of kids whose parents die.
I have
because
not
kids
seen
are,
that
like,
personally, but okay.
awful human beings. Yeah, my cousin actually has gone through that. Like, my uncle died, and she got made fun of in school because of it.
What the fuck?
Like, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's, like, really awful, and... I'm glad she's out of it now, but yeah, it's really bad.
Jesus Christ. So, you can say your thing about Neville here.
Oh yes, Neville is pure and must be protected. I also did like the way, like, the actor portrayal. I do forget his name. I apologize. But yeah, I don't imagine Neville's voice throughout the book, but the Remembrall part I do because of the way he pronounces it in the movie. Just I don't know, it's like Remembrall. Yeah. Like, all run together, and it's like it's precious.
Well, he's got like fake buck teeth.
Yeah, like there's that too. I mean, like Neville.
I can't remember what I've forgotten.
Like Neville did a straight up glow up, just like getting older. Like Neville got hot. Okay.
Yeah, that's what everybody always says.
Like, Neville got hot.
I can't comment.
But yeah, as for the Remembrall, I feel like it probably just is, the entire joke is that this thing is useless. But I'm still not 100% convinced that that's the case. Because, like, you hold the thing and it glows red if you've forgotten something. And you're supposed to be like, oh, crap, what did I forget? And... the thing is, though, like, if it was just a one-off joke, like, what a stupid, useless item, that would be fine. But, like, when they're taking their OWLs in 5th year, like, they specifically say, like, Remembralls are banned. I guess because it's, like, you're filling out this question. It's like, did I put in everything I needed to? You hold the thing. Oh, I guess I didn't yet. Like, maybe that would be helpful? Like,
probably.
Maybe.
You could probably use it smartly to gain some kind of advantage. And
the
if
problem-
there's any advantage, they don't want people to be able to...
yeah.
The problem is
Make
if
use of
you
it.
know you have to use the Remembrall to figure out if you've remembered anything, like on a question, then you probably are suspicious anyway. So, I don't know.
So I went ahead and I marked the
guess.
thing as Whimsy, just because I feel like it is kind of dumb.
I would agree it's Whimsy.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. It's equivalent to tying like a string around your finger, I guess.
So that you don't forget the oatmeal.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea of the string is to like remember something in your brain.
Yeah,
Create an
so-
association.
Yeah, physically do something. So
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that
That's how
can
memories
kind of
work.
work.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out here is in the movie scene for this, he gets the thing and he's like, I can't remember what I've forgotten. And people have pointed out in that scene, he's the only one who isn't wearing a cloak. So that's what he forgot.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I've seen that pointed out.
So anyway, they finally go to the flying lesson. It points out that there's 20 broomsticks there, which to me is further evidence that we're supposed to have about an average of 10 students per house per year, because it's the Gryffindors and Slytherins going there. So, like,
Am I right? 70 students.
Yeah,
70
and
per
280 and 280 in the school in general.
Okay.
If that is indeed the case, which seems
Yeah,
really
it's-
small to me, because that's only slightly larger than like my primary school, and that had really did not
This
feel like
is,
it had very many people in it.
every person with magical ability between these ages in the entirety of the UK, I
UK.
guess. I would say Europe, but no, Europe gets 3 schools. America only gets 1. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we have Madam Hooch. Before
Has
we...
the time come?
What?
The time has
Oh.
come.
Well, before we even get to that part, I have to mention that I feel like she's a really useless character. Like, which is,
Kinda.
it's fine to have side characters, but like, I don't get if she is part of the faculty or if she's like somebody who just shows up from time to time.
What
Because
does it mean for
Coach.
her to be a madam, right?
I guess
I mean,
she is sort of like the coach,
she's
right?
the coach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like as far as we see, there's like this one flying lesson, and then she shows up at the Quidditch games as like a ref.
Well, I assume
And
like it's going on in the background. Like
yeah,
how many times can you write about flying lessons before?
yeah,
Like what else are you gonna write about?
I get
Yeah,
that. It's not a regular thing though. Like they have their classes that they have to always go to, but like we never hear of other flying classes, and
true.
so
I figure they're just not worth mentioning. Yeah.
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 But yeah, so I had to mention here though, we can't talk about Madam Hooch without talking about her
We
her
can't.
legendary role in the first chapter of Hogwarts Exposed, where
Her grand
she
day out.
bites off Hermione's nipple and is revealed to be like this sex offender.
Revealed.
Like, what the I don't even think
Yeah.
there's anything more to say about it. It's just, you've got to mention it for the people who haven't heard my recollections of that story before.
Well, like Hogwarts Exposed is its own like beast in itself.
It really is.
You could do like a whole episode on Hogwarts Exposed, honestly.
But
But
we won.
I mean, we could, but but like, for those of you who don't know, it's a fan fiction, horrible fan fiction. Like the Sport
It's
King of
basically pedophilia, the story.
I mean, basically, yeah, and demonetized. Jesus, no. But yeah, like the weird Madam Hooch like obsession with the nipple biting thing with Hermione is kind of odd. Obviously, like right out of the gate. I don't know why he picked Madam Hooch, other than
It is really random.
I don't know.
And
He couldn't think
I
of
think
like another lesbian character. I don't know.
well, Draco's a lesbian, but
Excuse me. No. Well, I mean, I guess canon.
well, no. I mean, do you remember that one joke though? Or not a joke, but it was just like somebody's like dad who didn't know the series at all but was watching the movies. It's like Dobby
Yeah.
dies, and he's like, "How the fuck? They killed off Dobby, but they keep the freaking blonde lesbian alive."
Yeah, Draco does kind of have that vibe in the movie. That's funny. But yeah, like Hogwarts Exposed is basically like, I guess I guess it is an alternate reality kind of thing.
Where everyone's a nudist and
where everyone is a nudist and
As opposed to everyone being a goth.
are underage
Or, like,
nudists.
most
is-
of them, yes.
Yeah, it is odd.
Ron's a werewolf, and also, okay,
He has
hold
a
on.
big dick.
Well,
Giant dick.
I think Ron, Draco, and Neville are all like either rapists or have molested somebody at some point.
Probably. Because
It's
like,
what the fuck is this story?
well, it's because it's a Harry Hermione ship story,
Yeah.
and like they are that shipping fandom is like, don't get in their way because they will eat you alive. Okay, so like any other ship, and you're just dead to them. So like the Harry Hermione ship fandom is very, very passionate about that ship.
The best thing to come from that series, though, is just the third story where they go to Jurassic Park with, what the fuck is the guy's name again? Richard Simone.
Richard Simone. Because it's Richard Simmons, but he's like super gay. I mean, not that Richard Simmons wasn't gay, but like Richard Simone is like probably the best name I think that ever came out of that fanfic, because I still think about Richard Simone.
Good shit.
You should give it as like a fake name if you ever need one.
I don't know. It's like so out there. It's so out there. I love it though.
So
Yeah, they
moving
do
right
go to
along
Jurassic
from that.
I guess.
I think we've spent quite enough time on that.
I suppose.
So the next thing we have is about Fred and George.
Yeah, so them complaining about the school brooms feels very realistic to me. I can't think of like an exact analog, but it's very evocative. I can imagine these British kids being like, "Oh, the school brooms suck. They all do this.
I mean,
They don't work properly."
Yeah, it's also, like you've got the school wheeling out the old CRTV with the
Yes.
with the VCR
Free.
to watch like Bill Nye. And it's just like, what year are we living in again? But
It's like school instruments. Like if the instruments are really old and not really kept up that well, that kind of thing.
They did that shit occasionally even in when I was in secondary school in the mid 2010s.
What, with the VCR?
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah, like schools don't really keep up with like I mean we still had like those older computers for a long time.
We used Apple
You know.
IIe's when I was in like third grade, and that was like
God.
1998.
I don't remember the specific computers
and-
that we had, but we did have Mario Teaches Typing, so
Excellent.
Yeah.
We had like a bunch of DOS games, but yeah, we also had the those classic like the stupid slide projector thing with the like where it beeps for you to change the slide and that's free.
Yeah.
Illegal. But I don't know how to follow up that one.
Yeah.
So
but yeah,
as for brooms, I put brooms in Whimsy as well because why brooms? Why can't we ride anything else that's like
because
not
it's
awful?
classic. Because it's classic.
It is classic, but you'd
And
think
the reason
that...
it's classic is because they write them.
God.
I mean, think about it. Like, right, all the legends about, like, because the Salem witch trials are, like, said to be real in this universe.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happened.
As
So
opposed
all
to
of-
not having actually happened in real life.
So all of the legends of, like, the wizards and witches riding on broomsticks had to have been coming from the fact that they do ride broomsticks. So it's also a cheat vehicle. Okay, anybody can get a broom. Now you got your different classes of brooms, like the Nimbus 2000 versus your school broom.
The clean
You're gonna have a
sweep
little bit.
7 and...
Can
Yeah.
they do it on any broom, or do they have to enchant the brooms?
I assume they have to enchant the broom.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I'm pretty sure it literally just is, like, it's an object that they cast a spell on, and it's like, okay, it can fly now. And so, like, to make them better, it's a matter of, like, either just having...
It's probably skill.
It's somebody who is capable of casting a better charm. And, like, they mention about, like, oh, this one's more aerodynamic, but, like, it's a fucking broom. How much can you really
Well,
change about it?
I mean, the thing that always bothered me in the movie was that the Nimbus always had, like, these, like, fake-looking bristles, and maybe that's the difference. Like, maybe the real bristles kind of cause more drag versus, like, slick-down bristles. But, like, to me, the point where, like, they showed how to mount the brooms without sliding off the end. It's never really explained. We just kind of assume they fly with the bristles to the back. They might fly with the bristles in the front.
Nah.
I mean,
But,
well,
Yeah.
it never says. You don't know.
I am curious,
like the
though,
image.
I am curious how they stay on these, because you'd think, like, you've basically got nothing to grip onto here. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen, like,
Well,
some of the
broom
ones in the
harnesses.
movies have, like, these little, like, things to put your feet on, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, because, like,
I have
when you...
to, like, it's weird. I put here that I would think that falling off the side would be more of a problem than falling off the front.
Well,
Just
why
'cause
would
the
you
way
fall
Sonic-
off though? That's the thing. Like imagine you like go like if you go get your broom right now, right, and mount the broom. So you're holding on to the broom.
I'm not gonna do this.
No, like pretend.
I know.
Like, but you can imagine it. You know how it feels. So like everybody's ridden like a broom horse or something. So like you get on the broom, you grip the broom firmly.
But here's my thing, though, is, like, you're
You're not gonna fall off the broom because you're gripping the broom.
But no, okay, so yeah, you're
No,
but you're
but they're
holding
up in
onto
the
it
air.
tightly with your hands, but like, it's such a narrow thing. Like, you can't really squeeze your legs tightly enough to, like, hold that part on, I think. So I feel like, when you're flying
But-
straight up or like sharply or whatever, like, you're basically only holding on to this thing with your arms, and you're gonna lose
Yeah,
control of, like, how you're...
But why would you, like, I guess in my brain I'm thinking of it like a bicycle, okay? So you mount up the bicycle and you start pedaling. You don't have anything on either side of you, so you should fall over, but you do have a center of gravity that you rely on to keep the bike upright.
Well,
That's
you
like
have
the
to start
broom.
moving first. You can't You can't really sit on a bike as easily if it's standing still. You
Well,
would
no,
start.
not. But when people get on a broom in Harry Potter, they also don't just like not have their leg on the ground. So like you leap up, and that's when the enchant starts, and that's
Yeah, but
when
we're
the
talking about
momentum
when you.
starts.
But we're talking about when you start flying. I guess what you're saying is that the movement would cause enough.
Right,
inertia
the
in
movement
the
causes
direction
like the
you're going.
center of gravity. Yeah,
Okay.
like that's how I think of as a broom. They get
But
on the
you
broom.
also see them hovering in midair sometimes, and that's
Yeah, I
I
like
think
holding
what they're
still.
talking about.
But that's like again the gripping. 'Cause, like, I don't know. Like maybe because in my brain it makes sense because
imagine that you're riding a broom, but it's suspended from the ceiling and your legs are not touching the ground. Do you not think that you would kind of?
I don't think so because
to one side?
I guess if the thing is like if part of the flying charm is that it like remains level if you're holding it level, then you don't have a risk of like falling off the back or whatever. But
because if you grip the broom, all of the weight is going into the center of your body. Like all of your muscles are being used to push down onto that broom. So when you push down onto the broom, like or maybe like grip the broom or however it works, or the enchant does it, like you grip onto it and like that pressure is kind of keeping you stable because all of your energy is kind of like just it's centered. I don't know. In my brain, it makes sense. I can't explain
I'm loving
it.
how long this is going on.
We'll have to see what the comments say. We might have to cut it off there.
Right.
So that we
Sorry.
don't
I just
end up talking in circles, but
yeah, it makes sense to me because I like that.
I gotta point out another meme here where, in the movie at least, well actually no, they did this in the book too, where they have to like hold their hand over it and say up and then the broom flies up. In the movie, Hermione's like, up, 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 and like saying it really stupidly, and there's a meme I saw where Harry's just like, you know, the whole like, it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. He's just like, it's up, not up. But
Yeah.
But you wrote something here
also
about
the mention of the broom toy.
See, was that? I don't remember that.
I thought it was a thing.
Well, okay, so yeah, you wrote here, broom toys going out of stock because all the moms were buying them because they vibrated.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear about that.
They went like either they had to recall them or they went out of stock. Let me look it up. You talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, well, I'll point out the next thing you have on here where it's so Neville gets over eager or like scared or whatever and flies up, and as he falls off of it, I just love the way you have this written here. Neville's broom said, "Fuck all y'all, I'm out," and just went.
It did.
It just kind of like lazily floats over to the Forbidden Forest, and I do agree. It would have been nice to actually like see that there later when the car goes wild. But
I am a fan of brick jokes.
But yeah, the visual of that just reminded me of that video clip of the girl with like the toy fairy that just casually floats into the fireplace.
I love that video so much. Please tell me you've seen that, Martin.
I have, yeah. Oh, okay, here we go. I found it. So, as an article in 2003, controversial Nimbus 2000 vibrating Harry Potter broomstick has parents in an uproar.
I say.
While walking down New York City's 8th Avenue, he noticed a sex shop in Times Square was selling the Harry Potter Nimbus 2000 broomstick for $40. The toy was prominently placed in the window of a store that read Adults, Toys, and Lingerie. So it was like an official product, and on eBay, or Amazon, excuse me, on Amazon, the item was being sold, like, you know, as just a regular toy. So apparently, like, reviews were coming out and stuff like that, and parents were concerned about like their daughters getting them. I don't know. It was kind of weird. So Amazon removed the toy listing after a while. Like after this person sent Amazon a note asking for a comment about it, they stopped selling it. And I believe Mattel then discontinued it. Yeah, here we go. After it was discovered that like the toys may have been used for nefarious reasons, the product was
nefarious.
The product was
How is that
quickly,
nefarious?
I don't know. Like,
It's medical.
well, remember,
it cures female
this is
hysteria.
2003. This is 2003. Okay, nefarious reasons like would have been used back then. It was discontinued everywhere. You won't
Back
find
in the
it
dark
for-
ages of
for
2003.
sale, and it was being sold for like $200 on eBay back in the day.
Oh my god.
God,
So,
buy a fucking
yeah.
vibrator.
So yeah,
It's
it was
expensive.
happening.
I assume. That just made me sound like I know. I genuinely don't know how much.
I mean, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But
It was just a weird little side thing that I remembered.
yeah. But yeah, I just I had to point out again just how useless Madam Hooch really is here, because there's this scene of Neville flies up and like he's, you know, like 20 feet in the air and then falls off and breaks his
I think
arm.
she would be able to
It's
zip
like,
up there
yeah,
and grab it.
she's just like, come down this instant. It's like, yeah, real good job there. Like, why the fuck is she here?
immediately following that is some extremely questionable grammar where she says none of you is to move, and I'm like, shouldn't it be none of you are to move? Because she's talking to multiple people.
Does it count as bad grammar if it's somebody speaking and like they fucked up? I don't know.
I don't think I could imagine somebody saying it either. That's the thing.
See,
It's
that
not like
sounds
when
really-
people say. It's not like when people say, "Oh, I should have done that." Like people do that, but I've never heard of anyone saying.
It
you know,
sounds
none of
super
you
British. I don't know, like the word, like the whole phrase, "None of you is to move." It sounds really super British.
Maybe
To
it
me.
sounds like very Londoner though.
Yeah,
I'm just-
like it's kind of.
I'm just now suddenly
feels
reminded of God, years and years ago, I like people were being like super loud around me, and they're just like, "I'm sorry, you had to hear all that," and I'm just like, I paid none of it any attention, and they're like, "Wow, you said that so proper." I'm like, "Did I? What the fuck?"
Oh my god.
So
The next note, yeah, I like Harry standing up for Neville. It
is good.
is again a miracle Harry turned out halfway decent because all accounts he should have PTSD because 10 years of abuse
Yeah.
and he's 2 weeks into being the school year. But it is nice to see. I suppose it is a kid's book, and the topic of depression and PTSD right out of the gate would have been a little bit terrible.
Yeah, but
But still.
you basically
Nah,
summed it up.
well,
Yeah.
no, it would be much better if we had a main character who just shrinks away from all conflict and does nothing. But,
I mean, yeah, like there is the, like, do I write a realistic book or do I write a fun book?
right.
But I think it should have been
There's going to be a trade-off there,
looked
yeah.
at some point.
So yeah, once again here, God, I fucking hate Malfoy. Like, he's just, I don't hate him just because he's a bully. I hate him because he's just a shitty character. Like,
Relentless.
so like, there's, the scene where Neville breaks his arm or his wrist or whatever, and he, like, gets taken away, and immediately he's just like, did you see him again? Like, just immediately poking fun of him, and then he's like, oh, here's his stupid thing. I'm gonna go stick it up a tree. It's like, why?
I would think.
Why
that
are you
keeping
doing
that-
this?
I would think that keeping up that level of douchiness would.
It takes a
Take
lot of effort out of it. Yeah. Like, so the way I noted it here is just, he's not just a dick, but he takes every possibility to be one. And even when he knows he's been called out on it, he just doubles down. Because, like, Harry goes after him on the broom later, and then, he makes Draco's surprised that Harry's flying well, and he's just like, you're not as brave now that you don't have Crabbe and Goyle up here anymore. And Malfoy, like, I think it said that, like, he kind of realizes this and, like, starts to look a little bit nervous, and he's just like, catch, Potter! And he, like, throws the ball. It's like, Draco, just, what the fuck? He's just, like, he's just an ineffective, like, why do people think he's cool? Like,
I don't know. Do people really think he's cool for this?
well,
Because
I'm not saying, like, why do real people like the character? I'm saying, why do other students in the, why does anybody like him? Like,
I assume they just are scared of him.
maybe? I don't know.
I mean, it's not specifically like, oh, Draco, you're so cool, but it's more just a case of like, oh,
You have money.
Neville's a loser. He's he's making fun of Neville. Haha. Like, I don't think it's any specific reverence for Malfoy necessarily, but maybe.
Yeah.
I wrote here that, like, my instincts kicked in when I was reading this. I'm like, oh no, Harry, you would get in trouble for this too. What's the point? Like, I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, if I saw this happen, like, it would really not be much of a problem to just point out later to a teacher, like, hey, Neville's thing is up there.
Yeah.
Malfoy put it there. He flew on his broom while you were away. And then he would get in trouble, and there'd be no risk of you getting in trouble. Like,
Yeah,
I know
really
that
is
Harry
just,
it's kind of like this dormant, hot-blooded element of Harry kicking in from his dad, but
he just he hates Malfoy as much as I do, and he just wants to,
Right.
have an opportunity to do something about it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm questioning if the Remembrall would have broken if Malfoy had thrown it. Like, I know the thing is supposed to be made of glass, but I'm picturing it as being, like, kind of thick. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
I
thick
figured it would be
glass.
pretty sturdy as well, yeah.
And
Could
then,
be thick glass, yeah.
so yeah, Harry catches the thing in midair, and everybody freaks out because, like, he pulls off this difficult maneuver with it. And then McGonagall just happens to see this. So I have a couple issues with this. First of all, I don't know. I'm not sure if she just happened to be walking by. My thought is, like, Hooch is taking Neville up to the hospital wing, and then she like happens to pass by McGonagall, and she's like, "Where are the rest of the students?" She's just like, "Oh, I just left him there." It's like, "You left him there with what the fuck? No!" And she's like, probably goes there to make sure none of them are.
Any number of opportunities for McGonagall to be watching over the area. And
So
Which is like, I have nipples to bite.
God.
no.
But yes, she just kind of left 20 kids unattended with these devices that they could use to kill themselves. So that's But
Well, maybe she sent a Patronus like message.
I don't think so. But anyway, either way, it's just I just thought that was kind of funny. But then there's this whole bit of like, McGonagall is like, "How dare you?" and like all this like being super angry at Harry, and there's this whole thing like, oh, she had fury in her eyes and Harry is certain he's going to be expelled. Like, to me, this feels like unreliable narrator, because we know that she isn't actually angry, and I'm not sure how like Harry would have actually.
She could be putting on a bit of a show in front of the other students.
Maybe.
So that they think he's in trouble, but she's actually like, "Oh shit, new Seeker."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought she was doing. I thought she.
And I mentioned it in a minute, but like, I find it really endearing how she cares so much about the inter-house competition, because she's set up as being like, she's strict, she's no nonsense, she just, she's very proper about how she does things, but then it comes to Quidditch, and she's like, "Wood, we've got a new Seeker, oh boy, we're gonna win the House Cup, well, it's been so long."
I mean, like, fuck the House Cup, okay? Like, I don't,
Yeah.
like, just legitimately hate the whole house.
It is stupid.
Whoever wins the House Cup,
issue.
they get more funding for their common
And
room.
it doesn't matter because Dumbledore is just gonna, like, give it to Gryffindor anyway, so all you gotta do is
But
just...
he
Well,
didn't.
Yeah,
before Harry got
Slytherin won like 7 years in a row or something before this.
Well, that's because Harry wasn't there, so... Dumbledore's like, I gotta make this kid look good.
Well, the only time he actually fudges it is in this book, and it's because
He does in the second one too, but
Oh, really? Okay, whatever. He does
Dumbledore's
it.
an asshole.
He does it twice, and then I don't even know if we know who won in the years after that, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
really matter there, but yeah.
Not that it ever matters, but yeah. I just found it endearing that McGonagall cares so much. And the other thing I put is that oh, actually I didn't put this, but I was wondering when I read this part, because there's the whole stupid, not even really a fake out where Harry's like, "Wood, is she getting a cane to beat me?" And I'm like, wait a minute, when did corporal punishment end in schools anyway? So I looked it up, and corporal punishment in schools in England ended in 1986. At least
still going here.
Well, I don't know.
it's the wizarding world. They're behind the times.
No. But she's not getting a cane. Harry wonders if she is, which means that this is based on Harry's experience in real schools. But that doesn't make any sense, because he went to normal, like...
no, Harry's experience with home.
I don't think the Dursleys beat him, though.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Not that we know of. There's the whole frying pan thing.
Right.
I don't know if it's ever specifically said, but I mean, there's the whole thing of Vernon telling Dudley to like smack him with the smelting stick. But
so like there is obviously
smelting stick, best character
for it. There's an explanation for it, or inclination, excuse me.
But still, I would think that Harry would be at least somewhat cognizant of the fact that, very recently it stopped being a thing.
Harry wouldn't know that.
He's 11. Remember, he's 11. His entire world has been... No, not Harry, though. His entire world has been his home. Like, he hasn't been allowed to go out and do anything with anybody else.
Yeah, but he went to school, and this is a matter regarding school. I would think that
I don't think he would have known that. I feel like that's the type of thing that, like...
Okay, then where did he get the cane idea from?
Well, because it's not necessarily, the cane isn't necessarily attached to the idea of him being at school. It's attached to the idea of punishment. And he thinks he's about to get punished. So therefore, that's why he thinks the cane...
I'm just saying, I don't think Harry would have known that, like, there was a law passed and, like, that made this
maybe
no
not
longer
the
a thing.
details, but, I mean, he would, like... I don't know, even if he didn't have friends, he's going to be around kids. He's going to hear things. I'm wondering where he got the idea of teachers being able to hit students from if he lived in a time where that didn't happen. The only thing I can think is maybe he heard that it used to happen, now it doesn't anymore. He's like, oh, well, wizards are behind the times.
Well,
it could have also it also could have been passed on by, you know, Vernon or Petunia saying like, you know, if you
they're gonna hit you, you know?
Yeah, like if you keep doing this stuff at school,
point.
they're gonna whip out the thing. But
I'm just saying, I was curious about it because I know that it went away quite a while ago, like long before I ever started school, and I was never actually sure exactly when. 1986 is kind of later than I thought. Apparently, it only extended to cover private schools in England and Wales in 98, in Scotland in 2000, and Northern Ireland in 2003. So like,
private is like public over there, right?
Well, okay, what? Fuck. The thing here says private.
What about the local comprehensive?
I think that's just to make it an internationally understandable piece of writing here. The ones that you have to pay to go to are technically called public schools here, but I don't think I've ever actually heard anyone call it that. People call them private schools.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it still went on here, because like in southern states, that's pretty standard. The idea
even
of
still?
Like, no, not in like
schools?
I don't know in schools, but like in the household, it's fairly standard to still like beat your kid. So like that's kind of wouldn't be surprised if schools still allowed it. I do know that there was a case, I want to say, I don't remember what year, but I did see an article where a student was spanked by the principal, and but they only did it because you had to sign off on it. You had to sign off that punishment was okay in your stead. So it might still happen.
It's really weird.
That's weird. I mean, I don't want to get into the topic too much here, but I mean, I don't believe in corporal punishment in general. Like, it's well established at this point that not only does it not work for the intent that people have for it, but it also is detrimental and like causes psychological trauma. So
yeah, like I mean, because like I got the belt used on me for like grades and like everything else, but like the school never did anything, but my parents did. So yeah,
I got the wooden spoon, and it not very hard, but I mean it was still not good.
Yeah,
and it was not super common for me, but
I have very little input on
no
this.
real excuse.
So to go into something stupid now, I wrote down here, so there's a quote, you know, as he's following behind McGonagall getting taken to what he thinks is a punishment. It says, he wanted to say something to defend himself, but there seemed to be something wrong with his voice. I have a random audio clip that I feel applies to this situation, and I think we should listen to it.
Sure.
Okay.
And he's like, and he couldn't articulate it because he's not getting educated. Fuck him. I was there going, yeah, you could have told on me, bitch, but you're too stupid now.
I couldn't resist.
Oh my god. That's great. I like my contribution. Just would.
Yes. So let's see. I pointed out Peeves cursing as he leaves the empty classroom. It doesn't really. There's not much to say about that, but I do like the idea of Peeves just swearing up a storm and nobody can do anything about it. It's just
He was spitting rude words on the board as well.
Yeah.
Dog, look, I've written profanity on the wall, and it's just poppycock. But
Gun to head.
Shame he's not in Vestige Lecturer.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
I like the abrupt cut. Let me find the actual line here. It's...
Yeah, like there's a super abrupt cut from Harry finding out his father to him being just back with the others. And like there's... It was,
I didn't find it particularly jarring.
It's really
I think a
whiplash.
similar thing happened in a previous chapter as well. Where you
There's
guys
like no...
Yeah, it's
there's no
just,
like asterisks to separate it. It just goes
There is,
straight into it. Oh,
there is an asterisk.
Not
Oh. I guess it's not in the PDF then. Okay. Maybe this is a moot point, because for me it's just, your father would have been proud, she said. He was an excellent Quidditch player himself. You're joking. It was dinner time.
Yeah,
it's like,
just go straight into it.
Oh,
Like,
no,
there's
there
nothing
isn't.
between
I can, yeah.
Okay.
I can verify.
My bad then.
Let me actually...
My bad.
I didn't even open my book for this one. Let me see.
Now I'm curious.
I mean, I read it in the actual book, but then when I reread it for the notes, I didn't.
I've only got access to the PDF, so.
Okay, for me, there is not a line of asterisks, but there is a line break.
Oh.
Well, no, it's just one asterisk.
Yeah, I don't have anything
Normally
like
it
that.
comes
It's
with
just,
3, but
it's just line ends, empty line, line begins.
weird.
So it's fine.
Okay.
See, I just pointed out steak and kidney pie because I don't think I've ever had that. It's the type. It's like with liver, where it just seems weird to me to actually have food that's just named after the internal organ that it is. Like usually they kind of
I've
come up
never
with
had
a
it
different
personally.
name.
I don't like beef and I don't like weird parts like that. But I mean, steak and kidney pie is very common staple food here. I could go
It is
down
not
to
here.
I could go down to any of the 3 nearest pubs and they'd have it. I could go to the ready meal section at the local supermarket. They would have it. Like
The red what?
the ready meal section.
Oh, ready meal. I thought you said red emu. And I was like, what?
Do you guys call them ready meals over there? What do you? I don't think I've ever heard an American say.
I
Frozen
think
dinner,
it's frozen
TV
dinner.
No,
dinner.
it's not. No, it's not. It's not frozen though. It's like it's chilled. It's in like the chilled section, but it's not frozen.
Lunchables. That's what we
No. I mean, like you can get like pasta and stuff as well, like macaroni and cheese and.
That's like all.
Cokes come in boxes.
No,
Like,
I know what you mean. It's like in
You got
just
you,
like
the
a
ones that's
plastic,
just in, like
a plastic package of like pre-made
Yes.
potato salad.
Yes, yeah. And then you just put like, well, I mean, it can even be
Yeah.
a cooked food as well that you stick in the oven for like 30 minutes or whatever.
I-
and then
I mean,
you
we've
just-
got
don't know what
we've
you
got
would
like
call
rotisserie
that.
chickens that you can buy cooked and like hot and ready to
Yeah,
go.
we have that. I just don't know if there's like a term for it.
Yeah, it's just like
Ready meal might be accurate. I've never thought about it.
I don't think it's ready because like ready meal makes me think of like frozen food kind of or like MRE, like meals ready to eat. So
Not meals
like,
on wheels.
I don't know. Yeah, but we don't have like steak and kidney pie, at least not to the point where you can just casually mention it without explaining it.
Or
we
tripe,
have
for that matter.
Chicken pot pie, that's kind of like a thing.
Yeah.
But not steak and kidney. You can't really go down to the
local
Albertsons
Jewel.
and pick out some steak and kidney
Goddamn it.
pie. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Clearly that counts as a Britishism. No, I don't think it does.
We determined that food products, like specific
Yeah.
enough food products
Yeah.
that don't have a way of like generalizing them, don't count.
Pot pie probably would be a good approximation. But yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't think anyone would have read this and been like steak and kidney pie. What's that? It was just, it stood out to me as just like, oh, that's a thing,
Yeah.
I
Fair
guess.
enough. Fred and George beaters. I don't really get that they beat.
It's funny because they beat their meat. Lol. I don't.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. It's
Okay.
off of the wood comment too. Sorry.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So then we have I wrote, can't Fred and George just check the alleged new passageway on the Marauders map? But I figure they probably just are like, oh, cool. A kid after our own heart. He's looking for secret passages. Let's encourage him.
So they do have the Marauders map at this point, right?
They do, right?
So there's like
think
the whole
so.
Scabbers issue.
Ah, shit.
Well,
Let me look it up.
That's just because
Continue.
they
I'm gonna be looking.
didn't check for some reason. But I mean, yeah, like they give it to Harry in only 2 years' time. I figure if they
Yeah.
knew it that well, they must.
I
have
don't
already had
remember
it
when
by
they
now.
say they got it.
Yeah, I'm checking right now.
Okay. Because yeah, there's like the whole Scabbers issue with like Scabbers should have been showing up
Mhm.
on the map.
Oh, yeah, it was in their first year.
Oh, okay. That was super early.
Who'd they get it from?
They found it in Filch's office.
Ah, that's right.
Boy, they were brave 11-year-olds.
Well, they got taken there for like setting off dung bombs apparently, and then he
Oh,
like
right.
left for some reason, and then they just stole it.
Okay.
Good.
So let's see. Oh yeah, here's another case of almost a one-off character. Gregory the Smarmy
Yes.
there's a statue of him, and they're thinking that's where the secret passage is.
I couldn't tell if Smarmy was Fred and George's name for Gregory, or if Gregory was actually
no, that
That's
sounds
his
like
title.
that sounds like a wizard epithet. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so he gets mentioned one more time in book 5 when Fred and George create that swamp hallway, and that's in Gregory the Smarmy's corridor apparently. I also pointed out here when Draco says, "I bet you haven't even heard of wizarding duels," it says, "Of course he has," said Ron, wheeling around. I never noticed this before, but when I did a Control F for the word heal to see how many heal turns there were in this series, I noticed there's a shit ton of characters that are wheeling around in this series, and I'm not going to keep a counter for it, but I might point it out now and then if it like keeps showing up.
Gotcha.
Because it's just to me, it's just an odd word choice.
It didn't really stand out too much because I've used the word before, so it's a very punchy word, I think. Like you wheeled around, like it's a very motion word.
Just evocative, or
Like I don't know, it gives the image I think very well because he's not just turning around, he's turning around forcefully.
I
So
guess.
yeah, it works, I think,
Fair enough.
in the context.
Yeah, I mean, people make
Because
fun of like the overly flowery language choices that she uses sometimes, and sometimes it's valid, but sometimes it does evoke the.
Yeah, I mean the first book has some like writing issues in general because it is kind of meant for the younger audience, but
And it was her first book.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
it's a
and it was
little
the first
rough around the edges, but
yeah,
I mean,
it's not terrible.
yeah, hell, better than I would have done. So done.
Then
Dun.
So anyway,
Yeah.
Harry's hypothetical death.
We have some we have some good dialogue here from the same conversation. Just Harry's like, "What's a second?" And Ron's like, "Oh, that means if you die, then I'll take your place," and just casually.
Yeah.
eats
And
his
Harry's
brain.
just like, excuse me.
super.
And I also like the
Very
part of
casual.
it's like, who's your second? And Malfoy looks at his two henchmen. He's like, Crab. So we now know that Crab is the slightly more intimidating of the two.
Yeah.
At least for now, it's possible that they,
Yeah.
it's kind of switch up.
When I did the thing of like I want to notice like the differences between Fred and George, I'm like I should do this for Crabbe and Goyle, but no, Crabbe and Goyle are 100% like interchangeable, except for like the room of
Apologies,
requirement
potions,
scene in the 7th book, because that is
Right.
literally the first time either of them speaks. They do not talk at all in the series until that. Like,
They do in the games.
so
So yeah, the next note, the dialogue with Hermione is odd. When she's begging them not to go, it feels really kind of stilted. Ron just says goodbye, formal-like, and then it just ends. And it just felt really weird. The whole...
I think he's trying to make it like, closed off. Like he's like, goodbye.
See, like,
Yeah.
I was imagining, like, him saying goodbye, like, in The Weakest Link, the lady who just says
Yeah.
goodbye. Like, super, super really just harsh and British and just, like, you're goodbye. And it just,
super harsh and British.
it felt really weird. Just the whole interaction there.
So yeah, Harry's going through the whole night thinking like, okay, I've agreed to this duel. And he's had like all these thoughts of like, I probably shouldn't do this. Like, I'm gonna get caught and gonna like, I don't want to.
To be fair, he didn't even really agree to it. Ron's like, yeah, he's doing it. I'm his second, and Malfoy's like, cool, see you later.
Right.
Like Harry could have just not showed up. But
Yeah, it's like
the whole thing was arranged without his input.
yeah, he's basically like, I don't know if I should be risking like breaking 2 rules in one day like this. I got lucky with the first one, but he's like, but I can't resist being able to rub it in Malfoy's face. Like, this is a great opportunity to show him up. It's like, okay.
Show him up with what? You don't know shit about magic yet.
He knows how to turn a stupid fat rat yellow. Or how to not do that, at least. So yeah, they head out of the portrait, and Hermione is just...
Wait, I just thought. Okay, so this is incredibly stupid, and this regards the thing from the other chapter, but I'm now just thinking, that spell is probably just bullshit, but what if it was supposed to work, but because Scabbers isn't actually a rat, but a person?
I think
that's why...
I think people have pointed that out before. It's possible, but I'm pretty sure it's just a bullshit spell.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
as well, yeah.
It could
I mean,
it
it
could
just-
be a
it
little
came-
column A, little column B.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hermione is just like... there's a line where it says, like, Harry had never seen anybody so interfering before. And it's just like, she's basically just...
bit rude.
Yeah, she's just trying to get them to not be dumbasses and, like, get expelled for, like, having a fight with somebody out like after hours.
Yeah.
Like she had.
It's for their own good, really.
Yeah, she's being like, yeah, kind of poking her nose into it a little bit, but like, you know, she's got a point. Yeah, they're just completely dismissive of her, and they head out of the thing, and then the fat lady is not in the portrait anymore.
Yeah, and there's no backup portrait, so
it's like, you want to get back in? Tough shit.
yeah, like what if you were doing, like Forbidden Fortress shit, like with Hagrid
Forest.
or something? Yeah, excuse me. What did I say?
Forbidden Fortress.
Excuse me, forest. Yeah.
What if you were crawling around in a barrel and getting and fucking...
Dodging moblins.
What if?
Yeah.
But yeah, what if you were doing the? I don't know the name of it in my brain right now. The after school
Detention?
work. Detention. Thank you. What if you were doing that and you got home late and you just can't get in? It's not your fault, you know. So.
maybe
Ew, that's what you get for being in detention. Like, no, you've already
maybe the
served your
teachers
time.
maybe the teachers mentioned to the portrait like, hey, the student's out late tonight for detention.
I
Like,
doubt it.
They'll be back at this time.
Well, that's the problem though, because these portraits aren't as sentient as like everybody else's portraits because they weren't painted by like the grandest wizard of all. So.
God. So yeah, so they're locked outside. They find Neville, and apparently the password to get back in is Pig Snout, which I find to be a bit of a downgrade from Caput Draconis.
Maybe
Yeah.
they just like maybe
But,
the prefects have to like swap around password choosing duty, and
Maybe.
one of them just had like different, I don't know, tastes.
Like when work forces you to like change your password, and you're like, oh fuck, you
Yeah.
think of a new one.
Must contain one non-alphanumeric character. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
fuck off.
Yeah,
That shit really pisses me off because like cybersecurity research has showed that it makes the password less secure because it just restricts the space of possible passwords.
yeah.
So, I got more timeline confusion here. So the book specifically mentions that they go to the flying lesson at 3:30 p.m. The class, or like the lesson starts, Neville like falls off his broom, breaks his arm like freaking immediately, and then he says that like Madame Pomfrey fixed my arm in about a minute. So why is he still locked outside of the room? Because like when Harry is like basically, you know, mulling over, do I want to go do this thing, blah blah blah, and like Dean and Seamus fell asleep, he's like, oh, Neville's still in the hospital wing. No, apparently not. Where the hell was he all day?
I mean,
He probably was just lost.
He
They're
probably
2
did
weeks
just
into
get
the
lost.
castle and the place is a fucking labyrinth.
Yeah.
there's what 142 staircases. You're bound to go down one of them wrong.
Yeah.
Ran into Peeves. Peeves is just
Plus,
like,
this is Neville,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
so
I don't think it's like a plot hole or anything. I think it's
Yeah.
just
Peeves, do you know the way back to Gryffindor Tower? Yeah, it's right over here. He goes through a door and he's just in like fucking Bolivia.
yeah.
I've been looking for certain artifacts.
God.
But yeah,
So yeah, Quirrell apparently taught them, or at least mentioned, a curse of the Bogies, which I found interesting that this is apparently what they're covering in like the first week of Defense Against the Dark Arts, is just this random like schoolyard bully spell. I guess it makes sense to start with something minor, but
I
like,
speculated that maybe it's so that they can use something, very minor on each other that is still technically a curse, so that they can practice dodging it and like using counters and whatever.
yeah, maybe. I mean, I think that's a valid response. I was curious, and you gave a good answer to it. But anyway, here's another good line of just God, what was it even in response to? Harry just says, like, Hermione's saying something about probably just them, like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. I don't remember what the hell she said. It just says, Harry thought she was probably right, but he wasn't going to tell her that.
I do like that line.
Yeah.
I can imagine like that being narrated very well. I don't know, because there was like the Harry Potter books that like Harry,
Harry.
Harry.
Yeah. I don't.
That was narrated.
I don't. There's two versions. There's Jim Dale and what's the other one?
I don't know.
The other one. I know the other one's like a famous.
Stephen Fry
That's it. Yeah.
Is that the one we listened to?
I don't remember which one it was.
pocketed it.
I just remember, yeah, Hermione's voice in that. She always goes, Harry.
Yeah.
It's so
It's
weird.
like really weird.
Good shit.
And then yeah, so there's this whole sequence of they're supposed to find this trophy room where Malfoy is going to be there for the duel, but Malfoy is a chicken shit, so he didn't show up, and he
Not only did he not show up,
he specifically is like, Filch, there's gonna be kids coming out here. You need to wait for that. It's like, Malfoy, you fucking asshole. But so like Filch.
It always struck me as odd how, I mean, this is obviously like way later, but there's the whole shit with like the Inquisitorial Squad, and that always struck me as somewhat like out of character almost, because it's like bullies don't usually like get in with a teacher like in their good favor to get away with
Like
shit. Or at least I never
stuff.
experienced
Yeah,
that.
I don't know.
Usually those are different, but he's kind of doing the same thing here.
Yeah, there's this whole sequence, they have to avoid Filch and the stupid cat and Peeves and all this shit, and they eventually go, like, the way it was described is like they ran through a door and they ended up somewhere near the Charms Corridor, and they're like, yeah, this is miles away. It's like, was that a teleport? Like, or like, were they just running really far and like?
Well, remember, rooms move, corridors move, things are inconsistent. I think they must have just somehow ended up through a unique or like rare path that led them somewhere far away that they thought would be unlikely for Filch to get to them through normal means.
Maybe. But yeah, so they come across the Forbidden Corridor. Not that they know that that's what it is yet. And, desperate to get inside, there's the whole bit where Hermione opens it with Alohomora. And everyone's pointed this out, but, like, I had to look this up. So, yes, there's a spell that locks doors, Colloportus, and then there's a spell that opens them, Alohomora. If you have a wand and can do magic, there is no fucking point to having these locked doors. Like, unless it's...
Do you want to know why it's, like, super easy to get open?
Because Dumbledore sucks.
Because Dumbledore sucks,
Okay.
yes. Because he knew that Harry had to get into that fucking room. So he's like, I'm just going to give a spell that the first years can do. And that's why.
Yeah, it's like... So I guess,
all roads point to Dumbledore being an asshole.
And, like, I will be devil's advocate here, and I'll say, like, having the type of thing, like, you pull on the door, oh, it's locked, I shouldn't go in there. Like, yeah, it's like you can open it with your wand, but that's an extra step, and now you've been, like, given the hint that maybe I shouldn't go in here, or I'm not supposed to. Yeah. So I guess it has a point. But then I also saw there's an anti-locking charm. It's basically just a better locking charm that Alohomora doesn't work on, and I love that.
I do want to mention that when I was a kid, for some reason, instead of Alohomora, I thought it was Alakamora, like Alakamora. I don't know why. I think it was something to do with the way the line was delivered in the video game, because when you have to use it on like chests to open them and shit. And
diagonally.
One of the voice clips is always like Alohomora, and I guess just as a kid, the her sounded like a k, and then yeah. Incredibly stupid, but it was in my first ever Yahoo email address.
Oh, excellent.
Nice. So the next bit does confuse me. So, and I know the reasoning why, but the thing that confuses me is shan't say nothing if you don't say please. And I know what Peeves is going here, like you said, he wasn't going to say anything like.
Yeah, he's just trolling.
My question is, did he say it properly? Because
yes.
if he won't say the word nothing, if Filch does not say please, so I feel like he should have been...
here's how it works. if we're gonna if we're gonna pretend for a minute that like what he basically meant is like, I won't tell you anything unless you say please, and he actually meant it. Shan't say nothing if you don't say please is a double negative, so it's the same thing as I will say it if you say please. But then it also has the the I didn't do nothing. Like there's that aspect of it where that part is also kind of wrong, but like
actually no. I mean no. The double negative is involved, but it's actually a triple negative, right? It's shan't is the first negative, nothing is the second, and don't is the third. Two of those cancel out, so he's actually saying, I will say nothing if you say please. But I mean, the thing is that like that's technically incorrect, but people use double negatives colloquially all the time. You hear people saying, I ain't did nothing, right? Like you hear shit like that. And it's not like by pure logic, it's not like logical analysis of the sentence syntax is not correct, but people use it that way to mean,
Right.
Either
It
way,
was just,
it's Peeves trolling.
I just
Yeah,
sat there and stared at 5 minutes trying to figure out if
Peeves is trying to make it sound like he's using a double negative, and so that Filch will say please, but actually he's like, no, I wasn't using a double negative. I actually just meant I will say
or nothing. Yeah.
Do you not dislike not strong bad?
God.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Peeves is just chaotic neutral, basically. He just is pointless. There's another good sentence. What? Neville is like pulling on Harry's sleeve and like pointing back at the giant dog behind them. And he says, "What?" Harry turned around and saw quite clearly what.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Can we count, like... I almost feel like that's sassy narrator.
Almost, yeah. Like the narrator's like, yeah, I'm just gonna say this here. And then we mentioned it before, but trapdoor in the middle of the corridor.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, so there's a trapdoor going down in the 3rd floor to like this weird set of rooms that guards the thing, but I'm just gonna take this as, it's magic. There's like a pocket dimension it leads into, because part of me is like, oh, shouldn't there be like all these rooms that are just jutting out of the middle of the 2nd floor? Not like, no. But there's a line here, Harry groped for the doorknob. Between Filch and death, he'd take Filch, which contrasts well with Hermione later on saying, we could have been killed or worse, expelled.
Yes. That's parallel, though.
Yeah.
Also, a use of the word groped. And
It's a beautiful usage.
Last thing I have written down is there's, this whole thing, they finally get back, the fat lady's like, where have you been? And they're just like, forget about it, just let us in, pig snout. And so I'm wondering, like, the portrait knows that they've been, like, breaking rules. Do you think they ever tell teachers about this?
I figure the portraits are basically just people that, well, not, pseudo people that live there. They're not faculty. They have no obligation to tell the faculty anything, but they might sometimes if they want to.
I would say no, because think about it. You're in charge of letting the students in and out, and they talk to you. If they found out that you snitched, they're going to make fun of you, and they're going to be awful towards you. Might as well just let them do what they want, Like, that's my only idea. Because that there's probably some kids who are abusive to the paintings.
Probably Malfoy, because he has nothing better to do.
Yeah, probably Draco. So...
I believe we've
and probably
finally...
Dumbledore when he was a student because he sucked.
Oh!
Yeah, for real.
So we finally reached the end of the notes. We're over 2 hours here.
Excellent.
If you wanted to look at comments or anything, go ahead.
I have the page open.
Okay. I'm too lazy.
Wait, what? Oh, no, this is the wrong one. Fuck.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Good job.
I tried to be ready.
You had one job. No.
I did. Okay.
It also occurs to me, we've been doing this whole thing where we keep talking about your Dumbledore hatred. Did you want to get into that? We're already running late, but I mean...
See, like, the problem is that the Dumbledore hatred encompasses the entirety of, like, all seven books. And there's a lot of Dumbledore hatred that could be gone into. And I think generally what I want to get across is that he's literally just an asshole. Like, and I don't think that he's a good person.
I still do. That's the thing, is like, I've heard all of your arguments and I recognize them, but I still like Dumbledore and think that, like, overall, like, he has made missteps and made some very shitty decisions, but he's still ultimately, like, a good guy.
I'm with Josh on this one.
But see, y'all are, like, looking at Dumbledore like I look at my fanfiction Snape. Like, the Dumbledore that you think exists doesn't exist.
But he does, though.
But he doesn't, because there's
how does he not?
There's like so much shit, but I don't have.
We're not ignoring the. No. I mean, you've left a comment. If people are curious, like there's more details in that comment, but
yeah,
like we're not ignoring those things happen. We're just saying that given the sum total of the things presented in the books between the good and the bad, like we feel like he's overall.
I don't know. I find it difficult to redeem somebody who left Harry for 10 years in a situation that was abusive, and I think that Dumbledore continued to use Harry and be abusive towards Harry in an emotional way and withdrawing and withholding information way to suit his end needs. I think Dumbledore is a ends justifies the means sort of person, and I don't like those type of people. So
You're
I
not
can get
wrong
that,
about
yeah.
that because like there is the whole thing
Right.
with Grindelwald and for the greater good, which like they say that Dumbledore kind of grew out of that mindset, but there's still definitely aspects of that.
yeah, like he wants like that's the thing like that I have a problem with is because Dumbledore has all of these things towards Harry. He obsesses over Harry and his like point in the prophecy and all of that when it really could be Neville, like looking into all that.
No, I
But
couldn't.
like yeah, like
That's a whole subject on its
that's a
own.
wole subject on its own. But yeah, like
We can get into more of this as not.
Yeah,
not
we
that-
can we
not
can
that we
have
can't-
you in another episode and get
Right.
into that.
Yeah.
So
Not,
Yeah.
not that I'm stopping you. You can say more if you
no,
want.
no, but like generally as an overview, Dumbledore is the end justifies the means, and I think that the abuse of Harry would not would make him unredeemable in my eyes, and that's just a personal preference. Like maybe somebody
Yeah,
else,
we can just
like
agree to disagree.
yeah, and it's very. I just think it's so harsh. The 10 years of not checking on him, of not doing anything. Like he's there. You've got letters attributing to the cupboard. Like it's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot of abuse, and it's just sad to me, I guess.
yeah, I guess
And
to not go
it's
into
really
go-
hard.
to not go into like excruciating detail here, the way I look at it is, like, Dumbledore has this constant thing going on throughout the series where he is always thinking like 10 steps ahead. He can plan stuff out with like ridiculous precision, how things are going
But
to play
it
out.
leaves him kind of lacking. In
But it's the type of thing where it's
moment.
like, he knows that ultimately Harry is going to have to be the one to take down Voldemort, and he has to go
Right.
through these specific things to do it. And if he doesn't do it, then, evil wins, and a lot
We
of
don't
people
know
are going to
that.
die.
He doesn't know that.
He
And that's
doesn't
the
know
thing,
that,
like,
but he has a
he's not
very...
omniscient. He's not God. He's Dumbledore. He's Dumbledore who thinks he knows everything is best because he's Dumbledore. He just thinks it this way because he thinks he's
But-
the smartest wizard or whatever. So
I get-
it's just frustrating.
Just to finish my thought on that, like,
Yeah.
we can argue again, yeah, he doesn't know everything. He's not perfect, but
Right.
I'm just thinking, like, assuming that this is the case, that, like, yes, if Harry doesn't do this, then everyone's basically fucked. It's shown throughout the series there is kind of a struggle where it's like, Dumbledore is kind of having to do this stuff that he realizes is really shitty, but he does care for Harry, and he, like, has to kind of fight to, like,
But does
not...
he care for Harry or does he care for Harry getting to the end?
Well, no, he does care for Harry because there's even a part in the 5th book where he's just like, I wanted to tell you about this prophecy for years, but I never wanted it to be this burden that you had to carry. And
I'd be like, fuck off with that shit, Dumbledore.
there's stuff where it's like...
Yeah, but you can understand that he overthinks to the
Like-
point that it.
I don't know. Like I said, it's a complicated situation. I'm not saying he's perfect.
Yeah, like I guess in a real world scenario, if somebody in the news came out, they have abused their kid for 10 years, and the parent has said, "Oh, I did it for the greater good." Like, ain't nobody gonna say.
If there was a legitimate greater good that would have killed millions, then maybe.
But also you keep equating the stuff that the Dursleys did with as being stuff that Dumbledore's directly responsible for. I think you can make an argument for some neglect there, but it's not like Dumbledore was doing it himself. And also, I want to point out. I just want to point out in I think if I'm recalling it correctly, in one of the comments you said something about how like the love protection from Lily passing through blood is like totally bullshit and isn't the case. Like I was reading more about it, and like as much as I do kind of hate it and think it's stupid that the protection passes to Petunia, like because like thematically it is canonically the case. Like she was the only person that could provide the magical protection, even if it is stupid. Like that is how it works.
But that's my issue with the whole thing is because they weren't protecting from themselves then. They were abusing Harry. So the protection is bullshit. They're abusing Harry. Like, the protection blood should have been like, you can't do that to the kid. You're dead.
No, it
you know?
protects him from death, right? Like, and from magical, like, serious harm.
So it's okay to psychologically abuse him? Like,
No, I'm just saying
I
that
would
the
assume-
protection doesn't make him immortal. It just
I would
protects him
assume
from
the
certain
protection
things.
would encompass a lot of things other than just death, though. And even
Why?
then, like,
would
Harry's
it?
mom was dead before before Voldemort got to Harry. So where was the protection then? Like,
It was created in the moment that she died. Why does
Right.
the protection have to necessarily do all these extra things? Like,
but
I'll admit it's a contrivance. It's stupid
my guess
but
is, like,
it is
why
how
does
it
he
works.
have to be near somebody who has the protection?
because
Like,
that's just how it works. Like that's not
Stupid.
Dumbledore's
The
fault.
way no,
It's not
Okay.
blame rolling if you want, but it's not Dumbledore's fault that that's how this magic works.
it's Dumbledore's fault because he left him for 10 years to be abused by his family.
the way that it's
Shit on
worded,
him.
the way that it's worded in the series is as long as he can call this place home, the protection continues.
Right.
And so, like, if he did grow up somewhere else, basically the magic would fail.
But what is
And-
home? Is home an abusive, like, lifestyle where you're stuck into a cupboard? Like, Harry didn't probably
But
think
again,
of that as home.
I think it's stupid, but that is how it works. If
So many problems.
imagine,
Oh my God.
no,
Calm
again,
down,
again,
calm
I think
down.
There's a problem with the story. What do you mean, calm down? I'm
You're
not.
getting very heated.
No, I'm not.
No, we're just passionate. We're both passionate, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing wrong's going on here. So, God, I lost my train of thought now. Thanks, Josh. Okay, imagine you're Dumbledore, right? And you imagine this might be a false dichotomy, but I think that he sees it as, okay, either I have to leave him here in this abusive place, or I have to put him somewhere else where there's a very good chance that he will die because the protection is literally not there. I think that he is like, well, both of these options suck, but one of them
Well,
leaves a chance for him to, be killed by Voldemort, and the other one doesn't.
fucking Hogwarts exists. Like, Dumbledore's fine traipsing around Hogwarts and thinking that's protected well enough. Like,
That's fair.
why is Harry not brought into the fold and be like, live at Hogwarts? Like, obviously
I
they're
just think that
protected
this
enough
is not.
there.
I think this is a multifaceted issue, and I think
It
that
is.
because Dumbledore is noticing these different facets, that gives him a little bit of at least affords me some leniency with, like, okay, I can understand why he would make
I
what
just have-
might not think is the best decision.
I just have so much difficulty with the first 10 years of Harry's life. So much
yeah, I
difficulty.
do think he should have at least wrote. He should have tried
Like,
to keep in contact, have a little bit of a
like,
say in the
yeah,
situation.
like,
even
there
if he
should have
still
been
had to be in the house.
There should have been some checking up. There should have
I
been
agree.
like some care. Like, I mean, even in today's world, we have, like, people who go over and check foster kids. They have people who
Right.
go over and check adoptives, make sure your home's okay, all that shit. They didn't do any of that with Harry.
They
Even
did have
McGonagall-
Mrs. Fig, but she barely did shit.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Fig can't do shit because she's a squib. So,
Yeah.
and, like, she doesn't live with Harry. She doesn't go over and
Right.
question Harry. Harry's also going to be afraid to tell anybody because he's being abused. Like, it's obvious. Like, there's a notable difference, like, with kids who are abused. They don't tell people because they're scared. They don't.
Of course.
They're gonna get in trouble. So yeah, like, there's a psychological element there
So,
that Harry went through.
You know what I think about all this is
What?
I know this doesn't change anything, but I have a feeling that part of this might be because of, like, the first book was written as, like, there's all this background information that is planned out, but she isn't even sure if the series is gonna, like, go on that far, and she, like, has this whole, I keep saying, like, the Roald Dahl style, like, it's a very common thing in literature to, like, come from this place of, like you have nothing and then everything kind of turns around.
Well, we're all
it's like
actually
so
went
it's like
through it. Yeah.
so it's like I feel like the series started with this, and then, like, as it progressed further, it kind of, like, became a little bit more realistic, and the Dursleys started being more and more cartoonish, and it's like, okay, if we look at the entire series as a whole, then yeah, this was pretty unforgivable.
So basically,
but
Yeah.
if she would have like wrote the entire series and then gotten to edit all of it. and then
it was
published
probably just it's like, well, I wrote this, I've got to make it work in somehow. Like,
I guess, like, I mean, I realize that there's a difference between, like, the realistic world and the book world. Obviously, again, like we mentioned before, we can't go into, like, the depressive attitudes of like, abused children at 11 years old. Like, obviously, that'd be a huge downer for first Harry Potter book, but I don't know. It's a lot to kind of look past, I think, and that's why Dumbledore has always been like a really.
I just think that your like assessment of him is perhaps a little harsh. Like I would say that he is a very flawed and imperfect person that made some bad, even bad decisions. I would say, but that they're all kind of understandable within the framework of like how he sees things and what he prioritizes, to the point where I can judge him for it. I can say, these are bad things, but I don't think that overall that makes him like, oh, okay, he's just garbage. Like,
I guess like
I know that you exaggerate it a bit when you're like, he probably did this on purpose because he hates the students. Like, I know that that's
no, I do kind of exaggerate that just because it's funny. But yeah, like those kind of instances. But yeah, the not checking on Harry, that's like legitimate issue.
I agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if people would want me on in a future episode, but if we get to like the point where we talk more about like his like meanings and like the later books and stuff, I will be able to kind of conform my thoughts a little bit better on it. But yeah, generally not a fan of Dumbledore.
Not like we're exactly well rehearsed in our
exactly. So
we have our notes and that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Okay. So are we doing comments or are we done?
I've been looking. It seems people were saying to count the beans as Whimsy.
Which we did.
Wait a minute. Yeah, we did. Some notes about the real world, which is like Ptolemy and stuff.
Okay.
Potential pronunciation notes with that. Not going to get into that. Let's see. Oh, someone suggested that the Sorting Hat might not be imbued with like the ability to use magic and then it's casting Legilimency, but it might be that it's specifically like programmed to be able to use Legilimency only.
Yeah.
Which is that makes more sense than my whole
That's kind of how I
figured
figured
give magic
it
to
worked.
things, like why can't you give magic to animals like like muggles?
Yeah, I always figured it was more of an enchanted item and not something that could use magic on its own.
Right. I mean, probably. I went on a bit of a long train of thought there with that. Someone suggested that I think we might have mentioned this, but Harry, the turban being in Harry's dream is probably he doesn't suspect Quirrell yet, but it might just be like he's near Voldemort's soul. There's like a resonant connection being formed or something like that. It's always possible.
Possible. Yeah. Okay. We might want to start actually noting down the comments before the video just to kind of make it a little cleaner. That's okay. So I think we're pretty much done then. I have not looked at the next chapters yet to see if we're doing just one or if we're doing two. The next one is Halloween, which is the one with the troll.
This is Halloween.
That one... Oh, after that's Quidditch. Okay, who gives a shit about Quidditch? I don't know. We'll see.
Let's see.
It's
22 pages between the two chapters.
Okay. Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
guess
we can probably cover that.
Okay.
I figure we're probably going to be doing double chapters all the way through the rest of this book, to be honest.
Yeah, for the later books, probably not as much.
No, yeah.
I mean, again, make them as long as you want. I enjoy listening to them while at work, so...
Yeah, I try... I don't like them going super over 2 hours, which this one did, but we went on a few tangents here, so...
Well, there's 3 of us talking, with just the 2 of you.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay.
Make them long. I need content in my life.
Alright, well, I guess we are wrapped up here, so...
Thanks for listening.
Don't eat. I always say don't eat. What should I say instead?
Lay the funk down on a nasty skunk.
Yes.
Beautiful ending.
H.